We'd like to welcome everybody here tonight, Cache County Council, here on August 27th. We appreciate your attendance. At this point, we'll turn the time over to for the opening, Council Member Carl Ward.
Well, we've spent the last 2 hours, I guess, in a budget workshop as we're working through the budget process again for this year, and I thought it was very appropriate. Thomas Jefferson stated, "Don't spend your money until you've earned it." So that's what we're trying to do as a council, and I'll begin with a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, we thank Thee so much for the many blessings bestowed upon us. We're thankful unto Thee for the wonderful people that live in Cache County. I'm grateful for the service that is done silently and beneficially to so many people. We thank Thee for those who serve in our county government and pray for Thy blessings upon each of them. We thank Thee for the prosperity we enjoy, and we ask You to bless us to be wise in the things that we do. We ask You to be with us tonight in the decisions we make, that will be inspired and directed by Thee and all these things that have to be accomplished. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. If you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I will now accept a motion on the approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I will also accept the motion for the minutes of August 13th, 2024.
I move that we approve the minutes of August 13th, 2024.
So that include both the workshop and the regular meeting?
Usually not the
Yes.
workshop,
No,
though.
two meetings.
Not the workshop.
Not the workshop, just the minutes of the
Just-
meeting.
There are minutes,
There were
there are
workshops.
workshop minutes, but they could be separate.
They're included in the media packet as well.
Well, I would move to approve both of them,
Okay.
and I read them.
Move to approve both sets of the minutes.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll now go, nothing on the executive report, or is there?
I do have two quick items. I just wanted to mention that we have our annual suicide prevention concert coming up on September 7th, and people can get more information at CacheValleyIgniteTheLight.com. That's CacheValleyIgniteTheLight.com. And then another really important event that's coming up is the 9/11 Project, and it's going to be an amazing portrayal presentation about 9/11, and it will be starting on 9/11, September 11th through 14th at the Hanson Family Sports Complex in North Logan. And more information about that can be found at CacheValleyRemembers.com, CacheValleyRemembers.com, and that's all I have this evening. Thank you.
Let's go to 6A. Sean?
Well, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Council. Sean Milne, Director of Economic Development and Intergovernmental Affairs with Bear River Association of Governments, or BRAG. Thank you for the opportunity to follow up from my last being here, your most recent meeting. You recall that I noted that the state, through the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity, or GOEO, had moved up the deadline for fiscal year 25's appropriations request. What that means, and for the benefit of those that might be listening along or follow later, is the Rural County Grant, or RCG program, allows for rural counties, of which Cache County is one, those being of counties of the third class through sixth, having a population of 175,000 or fewer, is nearly guaranteed $200,000 allocation a year through a rural county, this RCG program. The county has, since a couple of years ago, allocated a majority of that towards Bragg for the very position that I fulfill for you with corporate retention, recruitment, and business development. The remainder has been utilized even prior when I was a county employee for various projects. The last couple of years, that has included, everything from aerospace and defense retention and recruitment to water optimization for ag users and other various elements. One during fiscal year 24 was an airport feasibility study, and that was for studying the long-term opportunity that LGU, the Logan Cache Airport as its call sign is known, and what it could be as the population here in the valley and the county continues to grow, as well as the surrounding region. Since our last get-together here, the CEO Board, which stands for the County Economic Opportunity Advisory Board, has convened. Your peer, Councilman Mark Hurd, happens to be this year's chairman of that board, so I want to acknowledge him. Councilwoman Sandy Goodlander and County Executive David Zook also sit on that 7-member board, and then myself and Alma Burgess, your grant manager, are ex officio advisors to that board. Well, they met since the last time we gathered, and they have the following suggestions. One, to retain the services of Bragg and to continue that arrangement with the Bear River Association of Governments for my services. They're not recommending, nor am I asking for any kind of increase. We're asking that that just be static and hold steady. The remainder would leave about $40,000, of which the board, after a very robust discussion, I think it's fair to say that there was a lot and equal participation by all the board members present. And the reason why I brought up that airport feasibility study from fiscal year 24, that is one of the recommended recipients of some of that $40,000 to split it 50-50. So roughly $20,000 towards the airport authority, and Mr. Carl Ward, the councilman, is one of the county's 2 representatives on that board. As you know, that airport feasibility study came forward, and the consultant, Dr. Mike Jones, recommended some fairly ambitious elements. I don't see Carl smile or smirk very often, but he just did, so I think that's a good characterization. That would definitely be long-term in nature. There are some that are very capital intensive. Some of those may qualify for an FAA grant, but every FAA grant will have a local match component to it. And the CEO board felt that extending $20,000 for the airport authority to use towards accomplishing some of those recommendations might be favorable. It might send a warm message on behalf of the county, which is 50% owner of the airport, as you know, that if there were external grants that could be sought, that this was one way throughout, without the city or county having to contribute from a general fund budget to make some sort of local match. The ideas were fairly nebulous, and we have not consulted with the airport authority. So that recommendation is for your consideration, with the acknowledgement that if they say, hey, thank you, we really appreciate you thinking about us, but we think we'd rather invest that money some other way, or disregard the consultant's findings and recommendations, then it would come back to the CEO board to reconsider how that money might be deployed, and then back to you for being redirected to something else. The other 50%, or another $20,000, is towards a project you'll remember me bringing before you last year and having mentioned a couple of times. The Bragg Governing Board is made up of 15 elected officials throughout the 3-county area, 5 from each county. In our particular county, it is our chair this year is Sandy Goodlander. We have Carl Ward and Executive Zook, as well as 2 mayors within the county. The 3 counties asked me to write a grant last year, and I was successful in doing so for a Rural Communities Opportunity Grant to study the feasibility of an agroport. and that is the blending of agriculturally protected zoning, if not expeditiously, like exclusive for agricultural protections for, think of, and this is hypothetical, but think of West Point Dairy, Gosner, Lauer Foods. Oftentimes, they need to be within a protected area from encroachment for obvious reasons, smelly, dirty jobs. But we know that that's part of our culture and heritage, and we know that we would like to continue welcoming them in our community to grow and expand. Many of them make very expensive capital improvements to expand their operations like Gosner and West Point Dairy have in recent years, nearly doubling each of their individual capacities. They've not done so with the hope that residential encroachment will make them profitable for only another 10 years. Fair? So the Bragg Governing Board gave me that direction to see how we could do that and combine potentially with our rail infrastructure and inland port play. So thus the name Agriport. Well, that grant requires a 40% local match. And that 40% local match, the governing board decided that they would like to see that cost shared among the 3 different counties proportionate to their population, which is the same kind of formula that the counties use for other Bragg services. That would mean that out of the $150,000 grant given by GOEO, that the counties would need to match that with $60,000, and by the population being the vast majority here in Cache County, making 69% and a fraction more of the population in the Tri-County area, $42,500 as Cache County's local match. The CEO board felt that while that is a great project, they also wanted to signal that they would like to help the council, because the vast majority of the CEO board are non-council members or executive ZOC, help the council not to have to dip into general funds to accomplish that. So they suggested 20 of the $42,500 be allocated towards that. And that, council, is the totality of this year's fiscal year 25 rural county grant application recommendation by the board. And at this time, I would defer any additional comments or color from our chairman, Mark Hurd.
I think you summarized it really well. Thank you, Sean. In addition, I'll just echo or repeat that there was a broad discussion about where could the CEO board make a recommendation on the funding, and after some time, and we spent at least a third of the meeting, if not more, on just throwing ideas out, and then everything kind of lined up to be those 2 that we came down to, on something for the airport, something for the Agriport idea. And open for questions if there are any, but it was a unanimous vote from the CEO board.
I might just add that Box Elder and Rich County have already approved their contributions. So it will be up to us to determine if we want to chip in, and well, and frankly, we derive the most benefit.
Yeah, and the Agriport will, they've already started one and approved one down in Nephi, is it 6 County?
Yeah, 6 county AOG.
They spend over $600,000 on their study, and we're kind of piggybacking on some of that. So I think for the investment that we're doing, we might get a great, we have potential for a really great return for our county and for our the ag business within our county.
The total of the grant was how much?
$200,000, sir.
And I guess our current ag protection zone do not cover agriculture manufacturing facilities, does it?
That I'd have to defer to Stephen. He's shaking his head no.
I'm almost wondering if somehow they could be meshed together.
That would be fantastic, yeah. I'll defer to Stephen.
I maybe want to do a little bit more review, but the state also enables a code for industrial type of protection that has the same type of protections that an agricultural operation would have. We'd have to review that policy and adopt it into our code, but it is an option that we could potentially look at.
And I'm talking about ag industrial type stuff, not all industrial.
Yes.
So,
So.
okay.
I'd be happy to share the slide deck that I used with the Bragg Governing Board, as well as an attachment to the grant application itself. Part of this envisions us accomplishing, Mr. Chairman, what I think you're asking about. There's an industrial zone in Sparks, Nevada, which is just south of Reno. And they created a kind of an expedited zoning mechanism whereby, being only slightly flippant, only slightly, that it's very flexible and open-ended, that if you meet the parameters in 48 hours, you could be breaking ground. Now, they have a different scenario, and it's not ag, it's very heavy industrial. But this envisions how we could help our ag producers by cutting some red tape. This is all part of that play, and I'd be happy to share that slide deck with anybody if they'd like it. So.
Well, thank you. Well, at this point, trying to see if there was anything formal, but there's nothing formal that we have to, we can
need to
just,
make a motion to
we can just entertain a motion at this point, whether we accept this. I'll entertain anyone from the board or anyone from the council.
I would move that we accept this proposal for this year's rural grant opportunity.
And I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded that we accept this proposal for the rural grant program that Mr. Sean Milne has presented to us today. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you very much, Council.
Thank you.
Sean, just with that too, will you also make sure and keep us updated on that 20,000 for the airport? Like, I'd like to know what they do with it. We'd like some accountability or oversight, just so that we are comfortable with that too.
That's fantastic, and thank you. Again, I'm trying to be brief and summarize, but the idea is we would operate through Carl and David to convey that, politically back to the board and let them know that this is an option. I'm happy, Carl and David, to make the same kind of pitch there from the podium if you'd like, but to just let them know. I mean, this isn't for deferred maintenance like paint and things like that for just normal operations. This is with the goal and idea that the economic development centric recommendations of that consultant that honestly are not likely to create a new job in the next year or two. We're talking some long-term capital improvements like the airport tower, which would be millions of dollars, to other elements, even like a separate runway for the pilot program so that the main runway, anyway, we would discuss those elements and see where those dollars could be best deployed. And then I promise I'd come back to you and the CEO board as well to just let them know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll now entertain a motion for 9A and setting this public hearing for the opening of the 2024 budget on September 24th.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and seconded that we set the public hearing, September 24th, 2024, Resolution 2024-19, opening the 2024 budget. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're close enough to 5:30. Let's go ahead with 9B. Who's going to present on that one? You will? Okay. Go ahead and, Mike, and share that information.
This is a public hearing for Resolution 2024-16, a resolution appointing new members to the Millville-Nibley Cemetery District. We've been through this a couple of times in the last few years, I know that. Utah State Code requires that county legislative bodies make appointments to cemetery maintenance districts. We have a handful of them in the county. One of them is the Millville-Nibley Cemetery District. That is a 5-member board that governs that district. 3 seats have been recently vacated. All of them, the terms just ended. And so it was, I wish I put in the resolution how long the period was. I believe it was 45 days that we needed to have an application period, publicly notice the application, and then that application period ended last Friday. The applications were sent to me. For those 3 seats, we received 5 applicants. The requirements to be in the cemetery district are that you must live in the cemetery district and be a registered voter. That's about it, and then the council makes the appointment through resolution. 5 applicants we received are Jared Nicholas of Millville, Randy Fieser of Nibley, Ron Jensen of Millville, Douglas Pearson of Millville, and Kyle Anderson of Nibley. I would note that Randy Feeser of Nibley and Douglas Pearson of Millville are incumbents. So they currently or previously held 2 of these 3 seats that are now open. The third member of the district board, just for your information, whose seat expired was Chad Davis. Chad chose not to apply, and so those are the 5 names we have, and this is the public hearing, and then the resolution will be considered later in the meeting.
Okay, at this point, any of those applicants, are you here? Okay, one of you? And your name? Kyle Anderson. Kyle, will you please come up here and introduce yourself really quick?
Happy to be here. My name's Kyle Anderson. I don't know if you need my address, but I live in Nibley. We've lived here for approximately 3 years now. 16 years ago, I came up here for school. Decided we wanted to come back. Work took me elsewhere, and 3 years ago we were able to buy a place in Nibley and plan on, as my wife says, it not moving ever again. So we've done too much of that, and as part of that, we're trying to get involved in our community, show our kids the value of service. My wife works for the parks, or with Nibley in the Parks and Rec committee. We do a lot of work in our congregation, in our kids' schools, in the community at large, and this seemed like another opportunity to, again, contribute in some way to our community. My wife is from Richmond. We spend a lot of time at the Richmond Cemetery up there. Her mother and her sister are buried up there. I have pioneer ancestors in Preston and Manaway, and so again, this seemed like a good opportunity to provide a little bit of service and share that with our kids.
Thank you very much. Are there any other applicants that are here?
We have another applicant walking in right here.
Okay, will you walk right up to the podium, introduce yourself, because we're in the,
Good timing.
we don't want you to sit down, yes. Introduce yourself as you're one of the applicants that's on our list. And tell us about yourself and
Okay. Am I speaking to this body or?
Yeah.
Okay,
all of us, everybody.
okay. Jared Nichols. I live in Millville. I've been there for 14 years. And I certainly, I guess you've already talked about it. This is about the cemetery board, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Well, I guess I've attended a number of funerals there at the cemetery. I've conducted a number of funerals and gravesides, and I've always appreciated the dignity with which the Millville Cemetery has been respected and taken care of. And Dan Ames called and asked if I'd have any interest in being a part of the cemetery. I guess it's the board. Is that correct? Yeah, and certainly I would be happy to give my time. Like many of the rest of you in here, I looked at things and said, I'm trying to run 2 businesses, and I've got a wife and church responsibilities and kids and everything else that comes along with life, but it might be a good opportunity for me to give back. So I'm happy to do my part if I'm being selected for that. And so thank you for giving me a chance to come right in here and talk to all of you.
Thank you.
Do I need to answer questions or anything?
Thank you. No.
Okay.
We're good.
Thank you.
Is anyone else, any other applicants for the Millville Nibley Cemetery District that have walked in, or? Okay, it is now open we'll now open up for the public hearing for anyone to come and comment.
I move to close public comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moving second that we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Well, thank you. Okay, we'll address that here shortly on the agenda. Let's go to 9C. And this is where, Stephen, if you'll come up and help us here, present just a little bit, and then we'll have the public hearing for that. And this here is the White Bison Acres rezone, ordinance 2024-13.
Okay, thank you, council. So I brought this up on the screen so that you can see the property. This was reviewed by the Planning Commission earlier this month on August 1st. The Planning Commission reviewed the application. The applicant is seeking to rezone 18.71 acres along Highway 23 from A10 to RU2. So just kind of maybe just present a little bit where this is. I'll zoom out a little bit. So this is Wellsville's boundary right here. The Planning Commission recommended to deny this application, finding that the full findings were in your packet, but I'll just summarize them really quick. That the location of the subject property to be rezoned is not compatible with the purpose of the RU2 zone, mostly citing that the zone must be appropriately served by suitable public roads and have access to necessary water and utilities. One of the concerns that was brought up in that as part of that finding was, whoa, I zoomed in way too much, sorry, was that the property doesn't have direct access off the highway. As you can see, they have an easement that goes back to this property. And as it was noted by one of the public letters that we received, there is some concern that that easement was not given with adequate access for the number of lots they could potentially get. So that is one of the findings. The second finding was that the recorded easement this actually goes into it. The recorded easement that would provide access to any future development currently has a right-of-way of 33 feet. This is only enough to support a minor private road, which would not allow for the maximum potential of 9 lots. The third was that the nearest area in the county that is in the RU2 zone is located 1 mile away. And the fourth is that the rezone is not congruent with Wellsville City's general plan. This is something that Wellsville City actually submitted a letter to the county that was attached to the packet, reiterating their opposition to the rezone. Are there any questions?
And we may hear after, let's have the public hearing. At this point, we'll open up the public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak, you'll come up to the podium, introduce yourselves, and if you could, try to bring up new information and share what you need to share, and try not to take all night. So
I don't want to take all night either. I'm Derek Hendry. All of our times has the council has watched the previous meeting, correct? So you've heard everything. We don't need to repeat ourselves. The only thing that I want to add is that August 2nd, Sunday, right after this planning and zoning meeting happened, the previous subdivision that was approved that was before there that's got 4 houses in it that's right off Highway 23. That Sunday, like I said, I was coming home from working with my boys in my side-by-side moving sprinkler pipe. I had to slam on my brakes as someone pulled out right in front of me out of that subdivision. Bound to happen, one of these times someone's going to get hit on that subdivision. This place, for this new subdivision that they're wanting to put in, is even more dangerous, in my opinion, where I live so close to it. I don't want to deal with it. There's going to be more houses, and off of that highway, the speed limit is 55. But if any of you have drove that road or seen other people that are driving it, they don't go 55. It's more like 65, 70, okay? So I don't need to bring up anything different, but just immediately after that meeting, I found it very interesting that I had to slam on my brakes to avoid an accident with my 3 boys in it.
thank you. Any others? Anyone else?
My name is Phil Bankhead. I'm here. I've had a stroke a little while ago, so I know what needs to be said, but I can't say it. I'm here in representing the Wellsville Irrigation Company North. Approximately probably 400 yards from this location on the east is where they want to put this subdivision. There is no water on this ground. For whatever reason, the Darleys, back when they put the canal in, they did not get any water for it. Mr. Wellick says it's got irrigation on it. That's only because the neighbors are using their water. So there is no water on this thing. Our canal or our irrigation system is right there. Where they want to put these houses, and so there's gonna be nine wells drilled right there, and they're gonna try to irrigate this 18 acres with water that's gonna come from my spring. And this spring irrigates over probably 600 or 700 acres that we've developed because we wanted to protect the water. And as far as I'm concerned, this board is not Mr. Willits is trying to make some money. And he's trying to change the rulings just to satisfy his need for some money. And he knew what this ground was worth when he bought it, and he's trying to make a quick buck on it. And I would say that I would not like to have that happen. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any others that would like to speak for or against?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Just again, came in a little late. Make sure you state your name.
Okay.
Keep it brief and try to address things that have not been addressed.
I'm missing a two dentists today. Try to get the retainer fixed so I choke on it. So, but could I put the zip drive in really quick just to show you the 3 images on it?
No, if you can just describe them.
Well, that's what could do you any good to see it. This is the first, I thought this started at 5:30, my part.
Were these items presented to the planning and zoning?
I talked to Connor today, and he said to hand it, I forgot the guy's name I was supposed to hand it to. But what's your name?
My name's Bryson.
Bryson, it's not you. Maybe it's you. Micah, that's who I'm supposed to hand it to. Anyway, I'll just explain. I'll take my 2 minutes, then I'll do 1 minute on that.
Okay, go ahead and put it up.
I don't want 9 lots out here. I'll show you quick on this. My goal was to have 4 lots. My son Tyler was gonna build on one of the lots. We did this property, a couple years ago. We had, with the previous owner who I bought it from, we did the approach with UDOT. We just finished that approach, put about $8,000 into it. I wanted to take the dry area, that's about a little over 4.5 acres, and I wanted to put that, and it's the very last item on there. It's right there. I wanted to basically take the dry area out of the 19 acres that I have and cluster the homes. And I'll just hand these to you really quick, just so you have. I wanted this stack to sit up here, but you could take one and pass them down there. Just a couple more. There's some of these, if anybody wants one of these, it basically talks about the clustering of homes. And that clustering, it's ordinance 16.02.060. And this is a county ordinance, and I think there just needs to be some time spent on figuring out what the purpose of clustering homes is. I always kind of thought, 20 years ago, I sell real estate, it was A10, or no, it was 1970 parent parcel, you could put 5 homes. So basically, if you had 10 acres or 50 acres, you could put 5 homes. Then it switched, it tightened up for 5 years. It became more lenient, and that's when this subdivision in this little packet, it's on this. So yeah, this is what we named, if you could flip to the next thing. When we first bought this piece, that's the only reason we did a boundary line adjustment. The blue parcel had the only access, and the red parcel didn't have any access. So we did so both of them could have access. And I'll flip to the next one. That's the approach. We just spent about $7,500 on it. So that UDOT approved approach is in, not for the subdivision, but basically for what we had before, those 2 access lots. I would have to approach UDOT again to get a couple more lots. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't have you. The county did this little part. They did this 2 years ago. Because the railroad track, they basically cut that ½ acre off, gave it its own tax ID number. That was one of the original findings the planning and zoning didn't like, because that was a split. I had nothing to do with it. The first floor did it, and the building next door, it ticked off all the other floors, because all of a sudden you have, when the old assessor went out, the new one came in, he did a lot of these. Go ahead. That's the amount of acreage I thought would have to be annexed into Wellsville City in order to actually be adjacent to Wellsville City. Go ahead, one more. That's the subdivision I actually did 4 years ago, and some of those people came to the last meeting. I don't know if they're here today, but that was the last time before they did the A10, but we took 16.5 acres. Our purpose, 16.35, our purpose was to do the clustered homes along the side, all the utilities, all the homes, and then leave more of the land, farmable, usable acreage for agricultural purposes. I helped the owner do this subdivision. I took it through. It wasn't my property. I didn't build any of those homes. I don't know who pulled out in front of the family and almost had an accident. I didn't build the barndominium. That was brought up last meeting. But this is kind of what I thought clustering of homes meant. The 1 acre lot, the 0.75 lot, the 1.5 acre lot, and the other was a buildable lot, but it had encompassed the whole other area. But in 30 seconds, just to go ahead and see if there's any more. That's kind of what I had thought. Lot 4 goes into a little bit of what was alfalfa now, but historically, where lots 1 through 4 are, was the dry area. All the actual irrigation water isn't used on the dry area. It never has been, according to what I've heard. It's been used over to the side. I'm not sure what the Darleys did if they had excess water, but that's why I thought it makes more sense to use the dry area. It's not the most producing farmland. Might be good pasture more. Anyway, but that was the thought when I originally did this. I didn't want to do 9 lots. It was either with the county. That's what they say on here. If you go to RU2, it makes it, I'm fine if you put a restriction and say, okay, only 4 lots. I like a remainder lot to keep all the rest in, but I've never really been seeking 9 lots. But you either do RU2, which would allow for 9 lots on 19 acres, or you do RU5, which would allow for 3 lots, or you do A10. But in my mind, I'm like, for that amount of 19 acres, I'm almost to 2 lots on A10. But if I'm not 20, I'm still just 1. So it's kind of hard to show restrictions. On this little paper here, if you look, the second, this just talks about, if you grab one of these, what clustering of homes. It has 2 pages, talks about clustering. But I just, really quick, what's the county council's thoughts on clustering? Like, what's the purpose of it?
You just keep going ahead.
Okay, so that'd be a question as we approach 3 of these A10 to RU2s or RU5 or whatever it is. Get in your mind, like, why would we cluster homes? What's the point of that? Sorry, my tooth, but see, my son's making fun of me. But if you go to, we live right here. I wish they would have got a picture of it up here on 4,000 West and 4,700 South. One of the gentlemen that was here last week farms a lot of the land. And when I sat down, he's like, why don't you build next to your house? Which is right here. We live on this paper. We live right in this land right here. It's all in the packet there if you want to grab it. Right here, there's 5 lots that was done 15 years ago on 10 acres. They sit on the same 10-acre land that we sit on. I told him, I said, well, we have a house right here, but we can just build one house. So I thought, well, it's kind of silly. Even though there's essentially an RU2 right north of our house, our property value is restricted because we can't do anything else with it. So I think this, where we've gone back and forth for 20 years, lenient, tightened up, and then to say, well, now it's just RU2, RU5, you come pay us $600, and then we'll decide. I think there just needs to be more, we need to understand more. The last meeting, this gentleman lives on the 1.5 acre lot in the subdivision right up here. But I think we should really just have what you desire. If I come and say, I want to do RU5, what are you expecting? A gentleman that sat over to this side on the planning and zoning meeting, he's like, he kept a couple times, he's like, I don't think this is what the council wants. And somebody else said, I think RU2 should just be right next to a city, right adjacent to it. Well, why wouldn't you just be annexed into the city then? So I'm really confused. I don't want 9 houses. That's what I wanted. But that's what I would like to have. I'll spend another $600 and I guess do the RU5 thing. You'll get the same thing. Mr. Bankhead, when we built our house in 2002, he opposed our well 22 years ago. He's still here opposing a well because all the water comes out of his spring. I'm pretty sure, anyway, there's just a lot of questions I have. I would like the council to kind of enlighten us on what the direction is, and because this is the impact on that one page. My last statement is this basically gives a parcel that you guys approved, RU2, 10 years ago, almost to the week, 10 years ago. And if you look through this packet, the people that, of course it's not going to be in this one because I have my bad stapler. The people that approved, there were, on this last page, the county, there were Porter, Butters, White, Merrill, Robinson, Yeats, and Zillis all approved in favor on the 22nd of April 2014. There were none against, there were none abstained, and there was none absent. So I would just say, what do we need to do to really be able to play by this RU2, RU5? Just let me know. I would love to do something besides just, my son, he's not building here anymore. He's just going to buy an existing house, which was suggested in the last meeting by the planning and zoning. It's like, why don't you just buy a house in Wellsville? That's what he's doing. Some point I would like to do something like this, but just tell me what I should do, what direction I should go.
Thank you very much. Any others that would like to speak?
Hi, I'm Jody Lichty. And after that presentation, I just don't even know where to start. There's so many things. I would love to shut this down immediately. Our family lives right there by that property and right where that easement comes off of a very busy highway where there's bicyclists and there's not even room for them that go by. The easement's very small. There is 2 other owners of different properties that would use that easement. So if he takes 3 homes, that leaves those 2 other owners not to be able to build on their own property that they have purchased, which is not fair. We own a water source, a big pond with a lot of great resources, ducks, geese, trout, which the family has put a lot of pride in and has built that for many, many years. We already deal with the trespassers, and I wonder what bringing more people to the community that don't appreciate large land space will do to that property. I also wonder as well, those resources based off of water is already on a dry farm. Are those resources going to be dried up by people building wells? And how does that affect our pond? What damage is there for my cute little nieces are here and they live there and they go to the pond and we fish and kayak in that pond, and we already have a battle with a neighbor that doesn't understand their water shares, and we have to fight with them constantly to be able to keep a good flow going in that pond already. Jed and whatever he would like to do with his future endeavors, we are the community that lives in that area, whether people on this were in favor or not. We live there, and we are not in favor, and we ask that this please be dismissed immediately.
Thank you. Any others that would like to speak?
Yes, I would quick. I'm Tyler Willits, the son of Jed Willits, and there's a couple things I'd like to address here. So,
Address new
Yeah.
items. Let's not
So-
reiterate the same.
there are many people here who have opinions about what should be done with this land. Even Jed, my dad, he has his opinion, which is crazy to me that it seems in the last meeting a lot of credence was given to the people who didn't own the land. And it felt like people were just eating up what everybody else said. And I think some attention needs to be brought towards landowner rights and really what our founding fathers declared as what we should be doing with the land and what the landowner should have control over. And that's something that I think needs to be considered. And in addition to that, I think that, there's a lot of opinions brought into it with family, with everybody wanting to protect their own private property and what they've done with it. But I think it's somewhat hypocritical to talk about that because they're there trying to protect their private property. Well, my dad is the private property owner of that land. And they're here telling him what to do with his property. And I think it's interesting that they're posing those questions when they're almost contradicting themselves. And like my dad said, we're buying elsewhere. We don't want to have to wait and deal with all this. But I would like to just call attention to a lot of those questions and like you to consider, the flip side of a lot of those arguments and really what verified evidence is brought forth. They bring up the water. Have there been any hydrologists, any civil engineers who have actually taken that data that they're claiming is true and brought any of that to you guys? Have they actually verified that it would have a large impact on their water supply that they're claiming? I think that if they're going to claim that, they need verified evidence of that, or else it's just puff in the wind. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you. Okay, you've already spoke there, so. Again, state your name, please.
My name's Jim Lichty. I live in the home in front of this house. They're trying to build the property, do the lots behind. My question is, my concern is this. When he did that cluster around my well, that was the first well built out there. That was the first house built there. When they put that well in, he put that cluster of homes around my well, which was 4 more wells within 400 feet of my well. Okay? Since then, I've had a lot more sediment in my well. Okay? We never had before. We had the best water in Cache Valley. We had it tested 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. It was the best water in Cache Valley. It's not the best water in Cache Valley now. If you let him put 4 more wells behind my house, my question is, when my well goes dry, or if I have problems with my well, who do I go after to fix my well? Is the county responsible for it, or is Mr. Wiltz responsible for it? I know he won't take responsibility for it. All he wants to do is sell the property, walk away, and say, it's not my problem.
Okay.
That's who he is. Okay?
Let's try not making this personal, guys.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's not
it may
personal,
feel
but
personal,
my concern
but let's don't
is
finger point. Let's just
who
state the
is-
facts, and
Who is responsible if I have problems with my well?
we appreciate your input.
I just want that brought up publicly.
Thank you.
Okay, that's my concerns.
Appreciate that. Any others that would like to speak?
My name is Marcy Larson. I own the piece of land adjacent to his, just to the south. So America was built on compromise, and I do believe in compromise. I also have 5 children. I own 10 acres that are adjacent. I have the most to gain by him doing this. I could easily split my land into 2-acre lots, and then all of my neighbors would hate me, so that my children can have a place to live. But I am here to recommend its approval. But at the same time, all of us have families and we all have children, and we know that there are not enough homes in Utah to house all of our families and all of our children. And at some point, there's going to have to be growth. And I commend the county council because I know that you have tried to preserve our open space and also allow for growth. And there is a plan in place. And I guess the one thing I worry about with RU2 is the precedence that it sets. It allows me to, make money or give my lots to kids or whatever, because I could easily, I'm sure, put in 2-acre lots there because there's now a precedence. There's also a lot of land adjoining. Hendry's could stand to make a lot of money because now they could put their land in 2-acre lots because there's a precedent set. I don't know that that's what anyone wants here. I would be happy to recommend an RU5 for this because it does limit the growth. It doesn't set the precedents. It also doesn't allow, let's say Jed chooses to sell this ground later, it doesn't allow for that, whoever were to buy it from him, to put the rest of that land into 2-acre lots. And I realize a lot of it's wetlands, and so it would never be allowed. But the precedence that is set is what concerns me, because I have no plans to put in 2-acre lots. I would like to use mine for agriculture use. But it does set a precedence, just like the little subdivision that was put in before has set a precedence. But I know all the people that live in that subdivision, and they're all good people. And we want good people to live by us. And we know that there's going to be growth. It does need to be controlled. I do agree with clustering, but I disagree with the RU2. I think that is too small of a lot to put there. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, my name is Bessie Hendry, and once again, I'm shaking. This is very uncomfortable. Building the road beforehand was Jed's choice, before he knew that he could put houses there. And so I don't think he should have brought that up because he didn't have permission to do that. Or he had permission, but not to the extent of putting that many homes. Scott Wells, we talked to him today. It's already been brought up. He said he's not interested in annexing. I just really wanted to bring this up, that the new rule that just got approved not too long ago to keep our county beautiful is 10 acres per house. That's the rule for A10. So I'm wondering why this is even being argued. If any of us want Cache County to stay beautiful, I hope this does not pass. He knew what he bought, and rules are rules. I think that's a huge problem in all of our communities now, is everybody thinks that they can just get away with things. He knew what he has. That's the rule. I know what land is. If I own that land, that's the rule. His landowner rights is to build one home. None of us are taking that away from him. And that land is A10 zone. It does not, it's all dry farm. This piece is all dry farm. So my message here is, my husband mentioned last time that you bought land to preserve in Cache County. And we all want beautiful fields around us. We don't have a problem with him putting the one home there. That's not what we're arguing. We're arguing because he's trying to change something that he already knew the rule. And so rules are rules. We all have to follow them. And sometimes that's hard in our life. But A10 means every 10 acres, one home, and that is the rule. And so I hope this does get declined. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others?
This is pretty ominous. My name's Kyle Larson. I'm Marcy's husband. We have the 10 acres adjacent to Jed's. I just want to bring up two questions or points. If it's allowed for Jed to build the 4 homes, how does that affect our property? Does that mean we cannot build a home there if we choose to do so in the future, or a family member choose to do so? And the road that accesses that property, what is allowed, what needs to be done, what is the right way to develop that, and what is allowed at this time, and what needs to be done to develop that road for that property that Jed is proposing this R2. Those questions I'd like to pose to the council to consider when you make your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I would just like to make it quick and brief, just take my 2 minutes, but the county needs to realize they're going to establish a precedence. I have land to the north, I have land to the east, I have quite a bit of land in the area.
What's your name again?
Oh, yeah, it's Reed Bryce Darley. Okay, so I'm the Darley on the plot maps you see. You're going to establish a precedence. That's what you got to realize. And if he's allowed to do that, I'll probably do that too, because I'll make money too. The second thing you need to realize is that it's on alluvial fen, and you'll be taking water away from farmers. Now, I presented a letter, or my son did last time, that stated over 20 people that weren't able to make it oppose this property building, that actually have interest in the land there. So that's something else you got to consider. And the other thing is a precedence. I would like to keep it rural, because that's basically a pretty area down there. And anyway, and the farmers rely on that water for irrigation. And if they drill a well, I'll oppose it next time, because I've realized the impact to they mentioned a pond. In the summer, we virtually almost have zero water going into the pond, except maybe a trickle the size of my little finger, because the farmers take all the irrigation. Where in the old days, there used to be plenty of water. It's not that case anymore since they built wells. And that's all I'm going to say.
Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Lacey Lichty. I'm also the family that lives surrounding by. In the last meeting, Jed argued to us about why didn't we buy the land, what we wanted to do. For the 18 acres, it was about $550,000. And just thinking for one house for 550 acres, and then to have to put power and a road down there, you know, that's not realistic. Plus, we're farmers. and it's all dry farm. So if you have no water, why would we want to buy something that we don't have any water source? Because there is not one single water source on any of those acreage, like he claims. And we would have loved to buy it, but at the same time, for that price range and being a farmer, that's not realistic as a farmer. You would make nothing out of that if you were to farm it, because it's all dry farm. And we would want nothing but for it to keep as farmland, not houses that are just going to complete with wells. It's not sustainable. And so I would love to deny this and keep our county as much as a farmland and farm community as it deserves to be. And I say this.
Thank you. Any other comments? No, you're done. You're done. Okay. I'm sorry, please. Please. Okay. The next time we'll have to excuse you, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded that we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now go to 9D, a public hearing for ordinance 2024-14, the Riverside rezone.
Okay. Thank you, Council. Whoops. So this next property, this is about 20.47 acres. That is just north of Paradise. And so just kind of for reference, I'll zoom out a little bit. Paradise boundaries are right here. So here's Highway 165. So this was also heard by the Planning Commission this month on August 1st, where they also recommended denial on this application. The applicant is currently zoned A10, and they're seeking an RU2, an RU2 zone. This would potentially mean that they could have between the two lots about 9 additional potential lots, or between the two parcels about 9 additional lots. So the reasons why the Planning Commission recommended denial. Their findings is the area is not conducive to residential development due to the presence of sensitive areas.
If you, those that are carrying on these conversations, we'll have to excuse you to carry those conversations out there. I'm deaf and I'm hearing you. And so if, so that we can hear what's going on up here, we'd appreciate that. Thank you.
So it's in the area of sensitive areas, including steep slopes, wildfire hazard areas, wetlands, moderate slope. It's also one thing that the commission didn't point out, but I think it's pertinent, is that the surrounding property is also in a conservation easement. This property to the north, west, and east of it. The second reason is the location of the subject property to be rezoned is not compatible with the purpose of the RU2 zone, specifically citing to allow for residential development in moderately dense pattern that can allow for rural subdivisions, and to implement policies of the Cache County comprehensive plan, including regarding improvements to roadways, density-based residential standards, and the zone must be appropriately served by suitable public roads, have access to necessary water and utilities, and adequate provisions for public service. The third finding was that the subject property is potentially not consistent with the Cache County's general plan, citing that the property is planned as agriculture and ranching, which places an emphasis on agricultural production. The RU2 has limited agricultural potential, and limited agricultural uses that are permitted. The Cache County General Plan also indicates that should any potential subdivision not be clustered, density of a residential development that is greater than 1 unit per 10 acres are discouraged. The Planning Commission, the last finding was that the Planning Commission found that the nearest parcel in the county in R2 zone is located 2 miles to the south of the subject parcel. Are there any questions about the application?
Might have later.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and We'll now open up the public hearing for ordinance 2024-14, the Riverside rezone. Again, please keep your remarks short. Come up here and be quite concise with them. We'd appreciate it. Again, state your name.
My name's Wayne Rude. We're the owners of that property. So we built our house down there in 2022. We had to put in the road and put in the roundabout, or not the roundabout, the circle, access circle. We paved it and everything, paid for that. We paid for our portion and the county paid for their portion. So it'd be on the south side of 7800 is where we want to put the lots. We want our boys and our daughters out there with us. And we do have other parcels. We do own 80 acres altogether with our other two parcels. So we could do the A10 there. But the reason why I want to do it this way is because I want each property to have its own tax ID number and separate from the ranch. So 50 years, 60 years down the road, something happens and a property gets sold, it's not part of our ranch anymore. So we would just do the 7, I think there'd be 7 or 8 acres. It calls for 9, but we don't want 9. And so we put in that road and we done our well, and we don't have any, problem with the water or anything. We have irrigation. And then the rest of our 80 acres would be in a conservation, and, it would never be developed. And I've looked into the conservation where the county buys property to keep it in, agricultural. But at the same time, I was told that we don't own enough property to qualify for that. So we just want to put our lots there, have our children there. Possibly me and Leanne would have a lot or two to sell for retirement. And then that's all we want to do out there. We've done the road and there's power out there. We would have to do well. I do have to do the well and the septics, but that's going to determine how big the lots have to be. Once I go down that road and Bear River tells me how big I need for my septic and stuff. But our house, they only required us to have a ½ acre and everything fit on it. So we're hoping that that's what it is. If it needs to be like a 5/8 acre, then, that's what we'll have to do. But there's nobody else out there, and everything else around us is in a conservation easement, which is good for the people that do get them lots from us, because they will never have anybody around them. There will never be any other houses around them. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to come up and speak?
I'm Leanne Rude. Sorry, probably can't even see me. Please don't compare us. We got compared last time in the other meeting. We're not comparable. And the reason why is, number one, we have a comparable road. It's a very nice road. It goes from 7800, heads right east, and it connects with 165. There's hardly any impact to any other homes around us. And like has been said before, the ground that's to the north and, and the west of us is conservation land. So it's not buildable land. As far as impacting wetlands, our wetlands are in the bottom part of this. It's a 2-part. So where we want to build is up on here. You go down into like a river bottom. That's where the wetland is. So, and the proposal that we want to do, especially our kids, because we do need the farmland, we do have cattle, we need the agricultural land, is that they build their home and then the rest of that is put into farmland. So it would be either alfalfa or 3-way or whatever we need. So that whole piece is not going to be just weeds or whatever. It will be the house and then the farmland, if that helps at all. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Is there anyone else that'd like to speak?
I'm Joseph Nielsen. I'm a neighbor, and I like the idea of what they're trying to do. They're concentrating the houses in one area and leaving a big open space. I live in probably the highest density in Logan, is just north of the temple. And I don't feel you got the temple on the south, there's 10 acres of open space, the parking lot to the east of us. It makes sense that I feel less crowded there than I do up by the university in the Cliffside area. But I do like the idea of concentrating the houses and leaving the rest of the ground open. It makes sense. If we don't make some changes, it's going to just have the same problem as we've had in the last 30 years and the next 30 years.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Move to close the public hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moving second, we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll now, public hearing for the ordinance 2024-15, Marshall P. Mon Family Trust Rezone. Go ahead, Stephen.
So this is, as soon as it comes up on the screen, this is a property located about halfway between Mendon and Wellsville, also along Highway 23, so further north than the other property that we were discussing. Let's say, am I not plugged in? Or it's not? Okay. I'll just step off to the side so you can work on it. And so the property, it contains about 14 acres. And it's currently zoned as A10, and the applicant is to be zoned as RU2. This would potentially allow for 7 lots to be built on the property. The Planning Commission recommended denial on this one as well. Also, at the beginning of August, on August 1st, they had 2 findings for the property. Is first, the applicant failed to provide any approval from the Utah Department of Transportation that would approve access from SR 23 to any potential development. And then that the subject property is potentially not consistent with the Cache County General Plan. The Cache County General Plan has identified this area as agricultural and ranching, which, as previously stated, places emphasis on agricultural production. The RU2 is more restrictive as far as it comes to agricultural production. And then it also indicates that the general plan, should any potential subdivision not be clustered, density of residential developments that are greater than 1 unit per 10 acre are discouraged. One thing that I do want to point out that the council should also potentially consider is that this property is within a few hundred feet of an RU2 and an RU5 zone already on the highway just to the south of the project. Are there any questions?
We will when we relook at it. We'll now open up the public hearing for ordinance 2024-15 Marshall P. Mon Family Trust Rezone. If there's anyone that would like to speak on that, if you'd come up here again and state your name and just take a couple minutes. I'll entertain a motion. Oh, Jeep, you got to be quick.
There's a quiet bunch.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for leaving that plugged in. Wait, maybe.
Sorry, it's been giving us problems lately.
My name's Dave Rupp. I go to church and live by a lot of these good people. I live in Wellsville, and I can see how it becomes very personal, and it's hard to separate feelings from facts, etc. So I'll try to just stick to some new information. I appreciate what Stephen said. Dang it, it's not showing. Okay, do you guys have this all in front of you? You're aware of it?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So I think a couple of the main things, like he said, 300 feet to the south, there is an RU2, and it's been there for 10 years. I think it allows for 4 homes, is what Angie said, and there's 3 currently. I helped the Pews
about a year and a half ago, do an RU5 across the street and probably more like 500 feet to the south. I think it was approved in January of last year. So this area definitely supports what Lisa Cooper would like to do with her family's land. That would be one fact I'd like to present. The other thing about it that I would like to point out, and the comments have been made regarding it, but there's definitely some confusion for landowners who want to do something with their land that doesn't fit RU2 or RU5. These guys don't want to put 7 lots on there, but again, they want to be able to do more than what RU5 would allow, so somewhere in between. So something could be conditionally approved, you know, based on that. The other thing that I wanted to point out, sorry, I've got to refer to my notes here. Stephen mentions it's right between Wellsville and Mendon, so it doesn't impact their future expansion of their future plans for their cities. I want to speak to the water briefly, and I like the idea that they mentioned, and I wasn't at the meeting in August 1st, and it's probably better because it was uglier than this one. But the water thing is interesting. I mean, the country as a whole is getting drier. So to come up and say factually that a well is taking water away, there should be some studies done to verify that. And I think the planning people said that. So you got what pulled up? What do you mean?
I've got the map. I can find it exactly. You can show them what you're talking about.
Oh, I mean, so they have it in front of them. I think we're good. I'm going to try and be. You can take his HDMI and plug in if you want, but I'm okay. So I don't think it's fair to come in and say that a well, you know, is taking water entirely from the neighbors. Definitely it impacts them. I've been on both sides of the fence of this for sure. But 90% of the water, and maybe that's not fair to say, but it's going back in the ground when you're on a well and you're in the county and you have a septic. So, of course, we're not drinking that immediately, thankfully, but it's going back in the ground. Lisa has been in this area for generations, the Mons and her family, and they have watched up and down Maple Rise little cluster subdivisions like this go in. So I wish we could see that map, and hopefully you have it in front of you, but the entirety of Maple Rise is these clustered subdivisions that have gone in. The whole thing. One sweet lady that spoke against this on the 1st, I watched and rewatched the recording. She just bought a home in there a few months ago, doesn't live there yet, they're gonna remodel it. She said this kind of thing belongs in the city, and she lives on a lot that's less than 5 acres, so a little bit of an example of not understanding, you know, what she's speaking against. If she was speaking, you know, she'd be voting against her very lot that she lives on. So I'm probably coming up close to my 3 minutes here. This is worse than speaking in church. Another gentleman who spoke out against it, you know, spoke to the water thing as well. He's been out there for years, also below the highway. But then he's helped 2 of his children build homes in the area, and they have wells. So it's that same idea of, you know, not in my backyard. If it doesn't benefit me, I don't want to see it. But if it's going to benefit me, then I'm fine with it. So water's for sure a scarce resource. There's probably other things that could be said. There's definitely a precedent for this. This whole little community of Maple Rise, it's within 300 feet of that. There was something like this done in the last year. So anyway, the final comment I would make is I feel like after watching the planning and zoning meeting, and truthfully it was very personal and I was feeling quite awkward watching it about the personal attacks. Not to my client in any way, but I would prefer that it's, you know, factual and unbiased. The one commissioner that made the motion sitting here, the UDOT thing is just a condition. That doesn't need to be done before. That's just a condition that could come later. So that's really not a relevant finding. The other commissioner who seconded the motion to deny it farms the land next door, and he probably really it would have been appropriate had he publicly said, I farm this land, I should recuse myself from even being involved in this, yet he was the one that made the motion, or seconded the motion to deny it. So personal things really need to stay out of it. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Move to close.
Oh.
Go ahead.
I'm Lisa Cooper. Thank you for giving me some time. I'm going to try not to reiterate what Dave has said. I do want to make sure that it is understood. We're kind of in that conflict with 2 acre versus 5 acres. We have no desire to have 7 homes. I live right across the street, and we own a dairy operation right across the street. I have no desire to have 7 homes across the street. I understand that sometimes there's conflicts between residential and agriculture. We would want 4 homes, possibly 5. And that is as far as my family and I are willing to go, or that we would ask for. One other thing to take into consideration, we all love agriculture. Again, we're dairy farmers. My husband's a farmer by trade. This 14 acres is a crummy piece of ground. It's extremely rocky. When we were kids, we'd go down and haul rocks, and my dad would say, if it's smaller than your head, leave it laying there, meaning the rocks. It's not great farm ground. I think it is a great fit for some residential building. I think so many of the comments that have been made are, we don't want this development around us, we want to be rural, but what we all have to admit, and I'm in the same boat, I build a house and I drilled a well. All of us build a house or bought an existing house, and we're all on wells. So I don't think that that should be grounds to deny this. The other thing, well, that's already been said, so I won't take any more of your time, but just remind you that precedence has been set. I have tons of neighbors at Maple Rise. I have 2 acres right across the street from me. I have 5 acres on the south side of me. And I feel like we qualify as much as any of those people who that has already happened for. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to speak?
My name's Derek Hendry. I've been up here before. I don't have any problems with someone building a house. I'm sure they were referencing to one of mine building in 2016. I live a little bit to the south. I put 1 house on 16 acres. I have no problem with someone who wants to build 1 house on their property. None whatsoever. If it's zoned for A10, build your 1 house. I built on like I said, 16 acres, 1 house. And the well that I actually used was drilled in 1992 when I was only 4 years old. I repurposed that well that was used for my dad's dairy farm. I didn't drill a new well. Yes, everybody out there that's drilled a well, they've drilled a well. But if you have your land, you have your acreage, that's what it's used for, and that's all that I want to say about that. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Moving second that we close the public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, let's go to 9F, the public hearing ordinance 2024-16, Paradise Cliffs rezone.
Okay, thank you, Council, again. So this was also a rezone application filed and heard by the Planning Commission on August 1st, as well as the others we've considered tonight. This one is out a little bit south east of Paradise, so just kind of zoom out just so you can see. So this is up Paradise Drive. Here's Paradise right here, and this is the parcel that we're talking about. It's 160 acres, so a quarter section. Up kind of at the opening of the canyon that's right there. The applicant it's currently zoned as FR40, and the applicant has requested a zone change as A10. The Planning Commission recommended denial of this application, and this is actually, staff normally does not make recommendations for zone changes, but in this case, we did make an exception and also recommended to deny because of the reasons that the Planning Commission agreed with the findings that we recommended. So the findings that the Planning Commission found is that the parcel does not have a history of agricultural production or agricultural related use on the property. It's pretty mountainous. The subject property currently has no road access. So along the northern boundary, there is Paradise Drive, or Paradise Dry Road, excuse me. And it doesn't actually connect to the property. The property in question doesn't have frontage along that road. It's also important to point out that that road we just have by a prescriptive easement. It's not a dedicated roadway either. And we also have problems with people putting gates up and down that road as well. The third finding from the Planning Commission is the location of the subject property to be rezoned is not compatible with the purpose of the agricultural A10 zone. Essentially is to provide areas to promote and protect the opportunities for broad range of agricultural uses and activities where farming is viable component of the local economy. The fourth is kind of the fourth finding is connected to this, is the subject property would be exempt from sensitive land concerns, thereby potentially allowing the creation and development of 16 new lots. Right now, under the FR40 zone, if somebody was to propose a subdivision, any sensitive lands, namely any slopes over 30%, would be excluded from their overall density. So if you had 160 acres, if you wanted to have 2 buildable parcels, you would need 80 acres total of unencumbered property from sensitive lands. But within the A10 zone, the A10 zone is exempt from those requirements. So essentially, the steep slopes or other sensitive lands in the area could count towards the overall density of the property. So a rezone would potentially open it up for substantially more development than what's currently available. The fifth finding is the proposed rezone is not congruent with Cache County's general plan. The general plan map has this area preferred use zone includes forestry or has this as mountain, rural, and conservation, which is preferred use of the zone includes forestry, agriculture, conservation, easements, watershed protection, hazard mitigation, and outdoor recreation and tourism. And then also the general plan does not include this area in the urban expansion overlay. Let's see, so I know there was a question that was brought up about whether or not they could build a single parcel on this, whether it was rezoned or not. And I don't know, maybe we should get into this when we get actual to the discussion. So, any questions?
I'm sure we will have in a minute. Let's go ahead and open up the public hearing for the Paradise Cliffs rezone 2024-16. Anyone that would like to come up and speak on that, again, state your name and.
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we close the public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now let's go back to 11A, the one we've been dying to hear. That's, yeah, the Millville Cemetery, the Nibley Cemetery. Anyway, they just woke up. So let's talk about Resolution 2024-16. I think we did have another candidate walk in, Mr. Pearson. We've had the other candidates introduce themselves. Would you just like to take 30 seconds and do that?
Yeah. I'm Doug Pearson. I have served on the board for the last 4 years. I have lived in Millville my whole life. My dad served on the board, and I think the Millville Nibley Cemetery is important. Right now, something like 78% of our taxes that come that we use for the cemetery comes from Nibley, and about 22%, how's that add up? It comes from Millville. But a lot of that is because quite of Millville, part of Millville, quite a bit of Millville hasn't been annexed into the cemetery district, and we've been trying for quite a few years to do that, and we always, come up with dead ends. And I'm willing to serve, but I understand, that the cemetery does need some people with the different skills than I do, and if the county feels like they can find somebody with different skills that can help the cemetery grow and become better, that's all right. I support that.
Anyone else come in that we had not heard from, that was applicants? Okay, at this point, I'll open that up for discussion on Resolution 2024-16. We do have 5 applicants.
Let's .05, then we don't have a debate. Some can serve half-time.
We have 5 applicants.
Oh, Mr. Chair. if I
Yes,
may.
please.
Thank you very much for your interest in this. It's getting harder and harder as we try to fill these positions to find applicants. So the fact that we have 5 that are applying for 3 seats on this board is really is great. So thank you. We really appreciate your willingness to serve on this board. I was going to ask a question of Mr. Pearson if I could, and this is just a side. How have relations been with Millville? Has the board been able to kind of smooth over some of the rocky time that we've had with Millville, or is the board, is that still rocky? Yes.
I think it definitely has improved, but but it's not a smooth sailing yet.
It's not smooth sailing yet. Well, thank you. Thank you for your service. We really appreciate what you've done to serve on the board.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ames, you've been serving on the board. Thank you for your time as well. If I may, as I serve and that's my district, I really appreciate you all for showing up today. So I would like to appoint the 3 individuals that showed up today as Mr. Pearson, Mr. Nichols, and Mr. Anderson as those that would be serving on the Millville-Nibley Cemetery District Board of Trustees.
You'll need to amend the resolution.
We need to amend the resolution?
Make a motion to amend it. I'm sorry, this is not pulling up. Let me pull it up on this screen.
Why do you have to amend it?
Yeah, what are we amending?
So pull up resolution
Uh-huh.
2024-16,
I
and
see
you'll
it.
notice that after the be it resolved, the appointment of, and there's a blank spot.
Uh-huh.
So you'll just need to amend the resolution to add those.
To add those 3 names.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So just make that.
Sure,
part of your motion.
sure. I make that part of my motion to amend the resolution to add those 3 names to the Millville-Nibley Cemetery Maintenance Board of Trustees.
I'll second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we amend, hang on just one second. We amend Resolution 2024-16 to add the names of Doug Pearson, Jared Nicholas, and Kyle Anderson to be appointed as members of the Millville-Nibley Cemetery District Board. Is there any discussion?
Clarification.
You bet.
Jared Nichols or Nicholas?
Nichols?
N-I-C-H.
Nichols, okay. I've got a bad spelling there. Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor then, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Doug, Jared, and Kyle. We appreciate your service and see you in 4 years to come back and do it again. So,
Thank you.
yes, appreciate that very much. Let's go to ordinance. It's now open for discussion with the county council for ordinance 2024-13, the White Bison Acres rezone. Stephen, we might have some questions for you specifically. And if you do have questions, what questions would you have of Stephen or each other? We'll open up for discussion for everybody here.
My question, Stephen, was everything that was presented here tonight presented to the planning commission on August 1st?
So the public comments might have been a little bit different, and I'm not sure the applicant had that same type of presentation at the planning commission. I actually wasn't there. I watched it online. I was out of town. But generally speaking, the report that we issued is essentially the same as the report that was in front of the council tonight.
Okay, thank you.
What was your question, Sandy? I didn't hear it.
I said, was the things that were shown to us and presented, were they presented also to the planning commission before they made their recommendation?
Hold us there now.
Okay.
Okay, I've been to both meetings. This is my district, so this is tough. But I respect those who serve on the Planning and Zoning Commission. I served on it for 15 years. I didn't ever take that lightly. Those guys aren't paid. They serve because they love this county and they try to do the best. On 3 of these rezones, we've heard from the communities who this property is in their annexation area, and those communities have asked us to help them keep their annexation the right way, and this is not compatible with their annexation areas. For those of you who said that I'm going for an RU2, but I don't plan to build the maximum houses, that doesn't help us. Once you zone it RU2, somebody buys it, next week they sell it, they can do what they want. So that does not stop us by you saying, I'm only going to build 4 houses. So I appreciate you saying that, but that doesn't help us in saying that there's not going to be houses there. Once it's RU2, it's going to be RU2. We've heard people talk about precedents and everything else. We're all serving. Once I'm gone, somebody else is going to sit in this chair and maybe see something different than somebody prior to us. The same is going to be true when we have a presidential election. Things are going to change based on what party's there or what person's there. So you've all made good points. You've all made good ideas, good points. But I feel the planning and zoning deliberated, debated, and came to the right conclusion, and that's my feeling as to where the planning and zoning is. And so that's how I'm feeling at this point. So if there's no other discussion.
Any other discussion?
If the council will recommend or deny the application, I would just recommend that the council include findings for why they're making that denial. It just makes the denial stronger if it's ever challenged. So, and it is a legislative decision, so the council has broad discretion. The legal standard is just reasonably debatable. So.
Well, I'll make a motion on ordinance 2024-13 that we follow the recommendation of the planning and zoning and recommend stay with what they've said, and that is denial of the White Bison Acres rezone.
Any addition, any other?
From the standpoint that we're following what Wellsville City has asked, we're also following what the planning and zoning has declared. Those are my points so far.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded that we uphold the denial of planning and zoning for deny ordinance 2024-13, the White Bison Acre rezone. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Okay, let's go to ordinance 2024-14, the Riverside rezone. What questions would you have on that?
Is this the Paradise?
Yeah.
And so it has
Paradise.
conservation land on
Yeah.
all 3 sides of it.
Okay, can we clarify a little bit? I think there's a little bit of misinformation. when the applicant stood up and said that they were told that they could not apply. Could you clarify
I
that?
say,
a
I
little
wrote
bit?
that down, and I was
Yeah.
planning to follow up on that.
We'll clarify that misinformation if you would, Stephen.
So Micah has highlighted the one parcel. It's also the parcel directly to the east, south of the roadway, under Half Circle Ranch LLC. So yeah, so under our grant, under the open space bond that the county approved, we don't have those standards. We don't have a set standard that would prevent somebody from applying. It may not, a property may not be as applicable under the standards of the bond, but anybody's welcome to apply and could be heard out. And so I'm not sure what the applicant was referring
There's no
to.
minimum threshold of acreage, there's no.
No.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, if somebody had a half acre, they could potentially apply. I don't think their odds of getting approved would be very good, but
Thanks for clarifying that.
it might be important. I know like NRCS and some other funds do have some minimum acreage requirements that they want to conserve. And
I
so,
was going to say, I think it's more than what we've ever, put in our regulations at all.
yeah.
Any other questions? Any other comments, questions?
I have a comment. I just have such a strong belief in property rights, and people, the right for people to do what they want to with their property. However, our job is to manage the growth and the plan of the whole valley. And so while it's, if I had some land like that, I might want to put my kids on there, to live by me too. I understand that and I recognize that. However, we have a broader responsibility to manage the growth of the valley and the plan. And this does not follow our county general plan to put houses on there. And again, like what Nolan said, even though you say you don't want to put more than 2 houses, but once you zone it, it's out of our hands and we can't take it back. So I would support the planning commission on this.
I would counter that a little bit. Of the ones we've seen tonight, this one has 2 very serviceable roads running on each side of the parcel. And it's very close to already developed home sites in that particular area. And because we still have the need of providing places for people to live, this seems to fit the bill for something of this nature in this particular area. There wasn't anything from the pictures I've seen that would indicate that it would create problems with sensitive lands. And so of the ones we've looked at, I would be in support of this one.
And I understand that, and it would be, but as was brought up by the planning and zoning, there is, 2 miles before the next RU2?
Yeah. Yep.
Those people who have put their land in conservation are looking to not have that, and so there, as it said, there's a balance, just like Sandy said on this, and I think the planning and zoning people looked at that pretty heavily, and especially the 2 miles from there, and we have to be careful where we start and stop the RU2. So I see your point, Carl, but at the same time, as you look up over the overall general area, I think the planning and zoning approached it in the right manner.
Wasn't one of their concerns of the planning and zoning sensitive lands? Could you it's hard to tell without being able to really see topography on this?
Yeah, I can just turn on the sensitive lands there. Because that was a concern brought up by the planning commission.
I don't see anything in their findings. Oh, yeah, it does.
Those are the slopes. The yellow is anything 20 to 30%, red is greater than 30%.
What about the wetlands? It says there's wetlands.
Listening to the public comments, I think that was relative to the slope.
Yeah, I think most of the wetlands and sensitive areas are back in this area. It is important To also note that RU2 doesn't have a sensitive lands exemption like an A10 does. And so the sensitive areas would be taken out of their density.
So how many acres would that leave that's not in sensitive land? Can you tell?
Be pretty rough.
It's okay if you don't have that, Stephen, I just wondered how much would be left. It's not sensitive.
3.5 acres, 3.45 acres that would be removed from,
From was it 18 acres?
20.
yeah, 20.
17 acres? 16 and a half?
Yeah, I just think if someone came in and wanted to put 8 homes, really messes up the area.
Stephen, if they didn't do a rezone, would there be other options for them to develop this land? It seems large enough to subdivide other ways.
Let me look real quick. So the one parcel to the west, I believe already has a single family home on it. The other parcel to the east, the smaller one, I am gonna run a quick report to see if it's restricted in any way. Essentially, by county code, if a parcel was established prior to August of 2006 and hadn't been altered since then, even if it doesn't meet our typical zoning standards, we allow we will issue a building permit to that lot. We essentially consider it a legal non-conforming parcel at that point, even if it was created illegally, as long as it was created prior to 2006. So we have a quick report that I can run on that parcel that it's not a binding report.
Looking at, with this, it's 20 acres, would this work as an RU5?
Well, the thing is, the application goes to an RU2.
Yeah.
And that may be an option, but they would have to then,
That's a separate application.
come in and reapply and see how that would work out. And, I love their ideas. They had the ideas. They talked about, hey, doing cluster, they'd like to put them around, providing for kids and things like that. But that in itself kind of creates other challenges too. Hope you really love your kids. So, but the in-laws may be terrible, but those kind of things does change. If everyone was to do that in those same areas, basically then you've got your small little cities as you go along in there. So, but I appreciate what they said there, but I think it also, like Nolan was saying, it's the distance between there and any kind of RU2. That's 2 miles is quite a ways.
Yeah.
So it does change quite a bit.
So according to our GIS has a report that we can run, and according to that report, it appears to have the same configuration as on August 8th, 2006. So that is indicating that it is a legal parcel, or more than likely a legal parcel. So they would be able to build a home on that lot as long as they could build it to and bring the roadway up to our development standards.
That other lot's part of our thing. It should be around in red.
Yes, sorry, I can mark that.
We're gonna move that boundary line and make that one big parcel.
Again, council, look in your paper, you've got a letter from Paradise City.
Yeah.
We need to,
Any other discussions you have of Mr. Nelson? Any other? Entertain a motion, or if you want to wait on it, we can wait we can postpone it to the next meeting, but it's up to you.
I will make a motion on 2024-14 that we recommend denial along with the planning and zoning due to what the planning and zoning said, as well as also the letter from Paradise City. Those are my points of reason for denial. That is my recommendation.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded that we uphold the decision of the planning and zoning for ordinance 2024-14 and for denial of the Riverside rezone. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of upholding that decision, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
It is, I'm going to vote in favor of upholding, so there's one nay and the rest are all aye.
And I would encourage the owners to work with Stephen and maybe they can do a RU5 or something.
See what other options.
There might be other options.
Dig into some other options, so.
But RU2 does not work.
Okay, appreciate that very much. Let's go to 11D, which is ordinance 2024-15. The Mon P. Mon Family Trust.
Tech issues. Tuesday were there before we put this, and then we're trying to abide by now.
Any discussions, any questions of Stephen?
Stephen, how, this one was the one to me that looked like it was pretty close to some other RU2.
Yeah, I can turn on the zoning layers and we can see what those are. You can see this is the property in question that's highlighted in red. This orangish color is RU2, and then across the street from that is the RU5 zone. Everything else surrounding it is A10.
And that distance between the orange and the subject property is 300 feet?
Yeah, almost exactly.
Can you zoom
I measured 293.
Stephen, can you zoom out just a little bit so I can see what's, okay. Because this map that we got with all the pink and the blue and it looks to me like there's a lot of development around it.
Yeah, so that map that's included in the packet is doesn't necessarily reflect zoning, but more of a reflection of what the current uses are around it, which sometimes is very accurate to what the zoning is, but also sometimes is a little bit different than the zoning.
That map doesn't necessarily tell you the parcel size of all, where all those homes are and how they got to that point.
So, Stephen, one of the things that is cited as a reason for denial by the Planning and Zoning, the Planning Commission says that they have not received any type of, I'm trying to read it, failed to provide any approval from the Utah Department of Transportation. Is that something that we require at this point in the process?
Typically, it's not normally something required. That is definitely required before development. But the Planning Commission in this case, because of the highway, they found that that was an important consideration. Like, as I mentioned, since this is a legislative matter, you have the county has broad discretion in its findings, and the standard is just reasonably debatable. So if a person on the street would understand the reasoning, then normally the courts will uphold that type of decision.
But that's something that we would require at a later date. That is a requirement.
Yes, that would be a requirement. They would have to.
But not something that we would necessarily require right now.
UDOT may come in and say, okay, you have one ingress egress point onto that highway, and then to put all those homes, if you go in RU2, that could have a huge impact on travel and stuff, but we don't.
Yeah,
And that's usually part of the CUP, the conditional use permit.
Or the subdivision, normally.
The subdivision is part of getting their permits in.
Yeah, that's a requirement we have. And it was very likely that UDOT would not allow for multiple accesses. They would require that it just be off a single access, any subdivision on that roadway.
So it says Minden City.
That necessarily isn't maybe something that we would. Sorry.
No, I just saw a thing here, it says the subject property is consistent with the Cache County General Plan as it is located in the urban expansion overlay and is reasonably consistent with the Minden City General Plan as it is potentially located in the A1 or A2 zone. So it's got Minden City's, it's in their plan. That,
There is a, it does have, what, 600 plus feet of frontage? Too, so almost, see, about close to 500, I guess.
500 feet.
yeah, this is one that I tended to think it went along with all of our long-range plans, and it's close enough to other R2 that,
I felt the same way.
yeah, this is one that I kind of felt like.
Well,
you know
read
what?
more in the report, though.
Yeah.
It wasn't done as an RU2 all at once. If you read in there, the Rose Hill rezone, a request to rezone 11.4 acres from their agricultural E10 to RU2 was approved by County Council on 2014. Rose Hill was already a pre-existing two-lot subdivision.
This property?
No, the one that you say is
Yeah, they were-
close.
The one that
And the current,
is 300 feet away.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Any other questions, or I'd entertain motions?
So the planning commission voted 7-0 against, 7-0
Zero.
to
Yep.
deny this.
Yep.
I just don't see, I mean, it says that conclusions, the property is compatible with the purpose of the rural RU2 rezone. Like, tell me what, Nolan, you were there, what are their major concerns? Is it just that that UDOT would have to give them, UDOT would have to give them the access before they could build anything anyway, but that's.
Okay, you read a report that said the county's plan. If you read on 2, the subject property is potentially not consistent with the Cache County General Plan, ranching, which places an emphasis on agricultural production. And then Mrs. Cooper pointed out she's got a dairy right there.
Yeah, if you go to 3B, it says the
Exactly.
subject property is consistent with the Cache County General Plan as it is located within the urban expansion overlay. Like, it's,
The public comments talked about the size of the boulders and how it really isn't. Can't grow crops given the rocky soil that are there.
So this is, it says, in the findings of fact, this rezone may allow the parcel to establish uses permitted to the rural zone, rezone requests in general nature, blah, blah, blah. 7 homes, potential lots will be 7.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't find that too inconsistent with what is 300 feet away.
so I'm just surprised that I'd like to have heard.
I know,
everything.
because I think that the road, which is their number 1 finding, is not very consequential. That's gonna be their battle with UDOT, not us.
so I do know one thing the planning commission did have concerns about was water in this area, as mentioned by several residents. This area does have some issues. However, the county, all we require when somebody develops is that they have evidence of water rights. We don't regulate those, we don't issue those, we don't deny those. It is, as part of the zoning, it is important to take that into consideration as appropriate services. But once again, that is a concern the planning commission brought up, but it was, like I mentioned, if they wanted to develop and they could prove that the state had issued them water rights, we would accept that. Accept the state's opinion on that.
And that just comes at a later point for,
Yep.
within the process, again.
Yep.
Well, I move to approve ordinance 2024-15, the Marshall Mond Family Trust rezone.
I would second that.
It has been moved and seconded that we approve ordinance 2024-15 and not uphold the denial of planning and zoning for the Marshall P. Mond Family Trust rezone. Is there any discussion?
How far is this parcel from the earlier one in Wells, this area we talked about?
I'm not sure the exact distance. put that into miles so it's easier, 1.42 miles.
There's one thing that bothered me on this is that this section of SR 23 is classified for UDOT as an access category 4, which has a minimum driveway spacing of 500 feet and a minimum street spacing of 660 feet. And that's one reason that they would be exceeding that by adding another, another ingress egress off of UDOT for homes. So, but that is a battle they would have to fight with UDOT, and UDOT still may turn them down.
Yeah.
But then they could be turned down, but the zoning change that we make will be with that land till the next rezone. So, okay, is there any more discussion? Hearing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor of passing ordinance 2024-15 and not uphold the denial of the planning and zoning of the Marshall P. Bond Family Trust rezone, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Barbara, are you still there?
No, she's not. So it then fails. No, it is actually tied 3-3. So then it fails at this point on a 3-3 vote. So let's go to ordinance 2024-16, Paradise Cliffs rezone. I think this one might be, any questions that we have that one? I think this one's a little more cut and dry
Yep, I would say
to
so.
me.
I move to, now I'm all twisted, approve the denial, uphold the denial of the planning commission on ordinance 2024-16 Paradise Cliffs rezone.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we uphold the denial of Planning and Zoning Commission of ordinance 2024-16 and of the Paradise Cliffs rezone. Is there any discussion? I think as part of that, I can't believe that they even applied without having some frontage.
Yeah, and
At all.
stating mine, I am stating the reasons given by the planning
Yes,
commission.
exactly. But this one here, I was a little bit shocked about. But, so anyway, and then I'm glad you clarified on as far as the sensitive areas. It's still viable in the FR 40 area, but it does change in the A10. And I was gonna say, we worked really hard on that.
Yeah, so last summer, we wrote an ordinance. We actually discussed providing an exemption for FR 40 as well as part of that, but that did not go through. And I'm trying to remember if that died in planning commission or that actually died in the council level. But yeah, so sensitive lands, if they wanted to subdivide, they would need 80 unencumbered acres of sensitive area, which is very rare up in the mountains. One also point that I wanted to mention is that this is a legal parcel, and so they wanted to build a single cabin on it. If they could somehow resolve the frontage and access issue, they would be permitted to build a single cabin. But the frontage is a big issue, and if you look at the sensitive lands, they can't build on anything greater than a 30% slope, which is everything in red. So there is a very small building envelope potentially up on the north boundary.
Does it even have any access?
And I got questioned because just a few weeks ago, we were in country that was not quite similar to that, and there were cabins everywhere. And I'm sitting there going, and you see basically homes and cabins and things like that built, in these little pockets of, steep slopes.
Yeah.
But they're not supposed to. They go up at night and they build their cabin.
That does happen, and it's actually something that we've talked to the assessor's office a little bit about because they report when they see one, and We tried to do an investigation, but I know there's a bunch up there that have been illegally built. If they do come in through us, normally what we require is a topography study to show what the slopes are, because this is just an estimate based off our LiDAR for what the slopes are. And so they can come in and potentially show they have a buildable piece of ground within that area. And so they have to show that they have a buildable piece of ground, and more than likely they also need to get a geotech to show if the slope is stable in and around their site. And so it can be done, but there are a lot more hurdles that they have to go through in order to do that.
Okay, any other discussion, questions? Okay, with that, all those in favor then of holding the decision of the planning and zoning for denial of ordinance 2024-16, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. Let's go to 11F. Consideration of a memorandum of understanding between Cache County, Rich County, Box Elder County, Bear River Health Department, Mental Health, Bear River Mental Health, to proceed with the creation of the Multi-County United Health Department. That's a mouthful. Okay. Is that Taylor? You talking about that?
This is the Bear River MOU.
What?
What?
Jordan's here.
Jordan Mathis.
Yeah, it's just,
I can present on it as well.
Do the Cliff's Notes for
Jordan, would you like him to talk or
do
you want him?
this portion.
Micah? Yeah, get up there, Jordan. We'd like to hear from you.
Just show us this.
We had a meeting with members of the legislative bodies from each county here in this room a while back. I can't remember the date exactly. During that time, one of the reasons for the memorandum of understanding was to give assurance to Bear River Mental Health as we negotiated legal governance of mental health and substance abuse authority within the 3 counties. They needed the assurance to move forward with plans for a receiving center that they've received funding for, and it was agreed upon that we would work towards this memorandum of understanding. It's my understanding from talking to Jairus that it has been reviewed by all 3 counties. Input was received from Bear River Mental Health, and that current document is what's before you right now.
Okay. Any discussion, questions?
I read the MOU. I think it's great. I have 2 questions. It talks about that they'll work, and this takes effect in July of 2025. Is there any steps along the way for any bumps that is noted so that it is worked out or anything else along with this MOU? Does that make sense? I mean, is there like a quarterly meeting saying, okay, are we meeting this? Are we ready by July 2025? Is there any blockage or what's going on? What makes this flow good to meet July 2025?
So the next step in the process would be redrafting the interlocal agreement between the counties for the Bear River Health Department to become a multi-county united health department. What that would allow is for the governance, for us to have some governance over substance abuse and mental health, in addition to public health as allowed in code. And then that would lay out how the counties desire for the Bear River Health Department to oversee that moving forward and give the guidance that we need. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, but the counties are still the authority. It would just be, we would be overseeing the contracts.
That's correct.
So the advisory council, is that in place after July 2025, or is that going to be part?
That would be in place through the interlocal agreement.
So prior to 2025?
Yeah, we would need to have some of these things in place, and
this is like, that will be coming soon.
In talking to Jairus, our plan was to have something to the legislative bodies of the county for an interlocal agreement sometime late this year, early next year, so that we have a 6-month runway to put all these things into place and work on those things, including the hiring of a director of substance abuse and mental health and things like that that would oversee these things.
And if I could just comment, I think the most difficult part of this has been, managing some of these relationships and making sure that all the different entities are on the same page about what needs to happen going forward. And a lot of that, discussion has already happened over the past year and a half, really. So, really going forward, I think we have a pretty clear path of what we need to do, and it's just a matter of executing it in the correct order.
So
this really turned out to be really quite a simple, clean way to deal with kind of a sticky problem that surfaced a year and a half ago or so. And now that this has turned out to be, I think, become a really good solution. Bear River Mental Health is comfortable with it. The counties are comfortable with it. Bear River Health Department's comfortable with it, and so
just for clarity, I will take it. We're taking it to the Board of Health on September 17th. I don't anticipate any issues with it. And even in that same meeting, because the relationship between Bear River Health Department and Bear River Mental Health will change from a partnership to a contract, we're going through the process. We have equity interest in 2 buildings with them. We're in the process of seeking board approval to have 100% equity interest and allowing them to rent so that there is that proper separation. There's not a partnership and a contract in place. So the attorneys have agreed that's probably the best way to move forward with those things. So things are moving forward in a direction.
And I think the most important thing to know is that making some of these changes, it's not just shuffling paper just for the sake of shuffling paper. I think that there are real improvements in care that can be made by making sure that our structure is right, and making sure that we have the correct framework to improve mental health in the county and to improve public health generally, and make sure that our citizens are getting the best care that we can get.
And this is, to me, even all the attorneys involved have actually worked really, really good. I mean, serious. It has been actually been neat to watch. With Box Elder, Cash, their mental health. I mean, they've just had some neat dialogue, and they've come together, and it's been to me, it was a neat process to watch all that, which I thought that was rare, but it's been great. I think it's been great to see all that work together. Jordan, we appreciate you on that. So, any other questions? If not, I'd actually entertain a motion then, is what we need to do, is to.
Yes.
I'd make a motion that we adopt adopt the resolution?
A memorandum of understanding.
Or adopt the resolution?
No resolution.
Memorandum of understanding.
Enter into the memorandum of understanding?
Yes.
Is that the right word? Okay.
Yes.
So, motion is that we enter into the memorandum of understanding between the 3 counties for the stated purpose.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded that we enter into the memorandum of understanding between the Cash, Rich, Box Elder, Bear River Health Department, Bear River Mental Health, to proceed with that creation of the multi-county United Health Department. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And Jordan, thank you for your patience and appreciate you. Resolution 2024-18, accepting the dedication of sections 1590 West.
Okay, I would bring up my computer, but I think Micah will have it up on the screen. So this is part of the Nautica amended subdivision plat. If you remember, it was been about 2 months almost, just 2 months since we reviewed this. Essentially, what this application, what they were seeking to do is to add an additional lot as part of the Nautica subdivision. And as part of that, their initial proposal was to abandon a section of 1600 West and for the county to accept the dedication of a private roadway, 1590 West. The two roads run parallel to each other. By our code and state code, if an amended plat is amending a right-of-way, it's required to be approved by the legislative body, which is the county council in this case. So the county council, after review of the application, recommended that we not abandon the existing right-of-way, but be open to accepting the dedication of the private roadway, despite the resolution that the county council passed back in 2002 that said we weren't going to accept any dedication of private roadway because of the unique circumstances of this, of the roadway situation up there. So as staff, we met, we reviewed the application, we reviewed their updated road plan, and we found a couple things. At the last meeting, I indicated that the county council would likely be the approval authority. I no longer have that opinion after doing some review. Because the new proposal doesn't actually amend a public right-of-way, just dedicates additional right-of-way, that falls back to the Planning Commission. However, the Planning Commission can't approve it because it violates a resolution by the county council. And so what we have in front of you is a resolution that the county council is essentially authorizing staff and the Planning Commission to accept the dedication of 1590 West upon conditions that are listed in 1 through 3, essentially accept the dedication of section 1590 West as shown in the Nautica subdivision First Amendment construction drawings, which was included, conditioned upon full review by the Cache County Public Works and Development Services staff to ensure the roadway, dedication, and improvements meet Cache County development standards, review and approval of the Nautica subdivision First Amendment by the Planning Commission, and upon recording of the Nautica subdivision First Amendment. Where's my mouse? Item number 2, to accept this dedication is unique due to the circumstances of the roadway system within the area. The whereases go into that uniqueness. That way, if this comes up again, if somebody goes, well, you accepted this, we have a record for why the council decided that this one was okay and maybe not another. And also 3, that accepting this dedication does not vacate resolution 2002-32, but is an exemption granted by the Cache County Council. And so we came to this conclusion. I met with the attorney's office after I reviewed and changed my opinion on it. And the attorney's office, I met with Jairus and he agreed with that stance. So we've placed the amended plat on the Planning Commission agenda next week, but it will depend on how the council votes on this tonight, whether or not they will grant that approval.
Okay, on G, has that occurred? Have you done, is that up to standard for us to, or are we gonna take a road and then we end up having to get it up to the standard?
What they'll have to do is do the improvements along their section for anything that isn't up to standard. So Public Works has reviewed it and they feel comfortable with the roadway as it is and believe it is a better topography and a much better road than the current public roadway.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion or any discussion?
I'll move that we approve resolution 2024-18, accepting the dedication of sections of 1590 West.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moving second that we approve resolution 2024-18 on that dedication of sections of 1590 West. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. Resolution 2024-20, approving the resolution approving the Harris Farm Round 1 open space application.
Do a PowerPoint just barely since it wasn't working. I don't know if we can bring that up. Maybe not. Okay. So I did have a brief presentation to kind of highlight this application that goes through some of the details, but the connection isn't working, so I'm hoping Micah will be able to open it for me. So Zan Harris is a property owner, owns about, sorry, I have this on my presentation. He owns just over about 230 acres between Lewiston and Richmond. It's kind of adjacent to the Pepperidge Farm property and the Cub River. We'll bring up a map of it here in just a second. Yep, right there.
West of Highway 91, down
Yep.
past Lee's, way down, kind of down there in the bottom ground.
And a river.
Yep. Unique, fun, unique, beautiful little place down there.
Is this the river?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the Cub River. Yep.
And so just to begin with, I just wanted to just kind of remind the council where we're at in this application process. This is the first round. The COSAC committee has reviewed it and made a positive recommendation, which I'll get to their findings here in a minute. And so now it's up for the county council to review. At this stage, we're mostly just determining whether or not the property meets the criteria as listed within the bond, and whether or not we would allow them to move forward to start getting numbers and estimates for what funding they would need in order for to sponsor the easement. And then this is the bond language. Essentially, that the purpose of the bond is of paying all or portion of the cost of purchasing land, conservation easements, and other interests in land from willing landowners, and in order to protect scenic vistas, preserve open lands near valley gateways, add trails and trail connectivity, and maintain agriculture, waterways, and wildlife habitat. And so just a few highlights from the parcel. So this is a map of it. Like I said, it's a total of 229 acres. It's located between Richmond and Lewiston, approximately 10,600 north and 300 east. It's just north of Highway 142. And this right here is the Cub River. And so the COSAC did a site visit, and one of our members has a drone, and so he took here's just a 30-second video of the property. So the property is located on the left on this video.
How far is it from Highway 89 west?
About 4,000 feet.
It's actually closer to Conference Road.
Mm-hmm.
If you go to the Richmond sewer ponds.
Yep.
It is from the sewer, you'll see the picture of the sewer pond, it's from that, basically to the north.
Well, what are the crops planted in there?
That's alfalfa there.
It's corn, right?
Oh, that one's corn? You had alfalfa above it, didn't? And then the wheat and barley, whatever, yeah.
So for the first two criteria, protect scenic vistas and land near valley gateways, the property is more than 900 feet away from SR 42 and about 4,000 feet from US 91. As you can see, this is what you can see from the south from the highway. And based on UDOT's numbers, on average, there's about 900 vehicles that travel that roadway per day. So it maintains agriculture. The property is currently being farmed, mainly to grow corn right now. NRCS has sections of this property listed as prime farmland if irrigated and farmlands of local importance. The yellow represents prime farmland if irrigated, green represents local importance. I think it's really important to point out that the Utah Department of Agriculture and Food staff has told the county that they're very interested in having this land preserved, to the point that they are assisting the property owner in securing other funds, and have committed that they are willing to hold the conservation easement if funds are awarded for it. And so the state views this as an important piece of farmland that they would like to preserve. Waterways and wildlife habitat. So there are some wetlands, and there's the Cub River that runs along the north. There is some ponds on the property as well. Those are the dark blue. The dark blue just to the very south is the Richmond sewer ponds that are along the southern boundary of the property. It's also important to note, many of you probably saw the letter from North Logan that's sent. North Logan is looking to do some wetland mitigation in this very north section that's outside of the pivot area. And so they're interested in having this land conserved as well for their wetland mitigation. For public access, this is the 2003 Richmond Trail Master Plan. They have a trail that's planned along the Cub River. This is the property in question right here. Richmond City owns these properties all along the south, and they have a master plan trailhead off Highway 142. After talking to the applicant has indicated they are open to providing a trail easement along the river as part of the application. And actually talking to the state was supportive of this and felt like it would actually help them receive additional funds from different entities and parties in the future. And so, and this weighed into their scoring. The trail length would be about 0.9 miles along their property. It's also important to note that there's only 2 property owners to the north to connect to the next right-of-way, which we have not heard back from some of them whether or not they'd be interested at this point, but it would be the first leg in this trail that has been master planned.
Take that trail all the way over the Caspers? No.
Yeah. So COSAC scores and recommendations. They gave a positive recommendation, noting that the importance of the public access and how it factored into their scores. So this is the average score of each member. The total scores was out of 100. However, when the scores were set up, it was noted that it was very unlikely that any property would give a perfect score because of the review criteria. So these are the review criteria and the average score that was given for each of these review. So each score is worth 15 points, except for the last one, distinguishing factors, which is worth 10. And so you can see the protect scenic vistas and preserve open lands near valley gateways. Those scored lower on average for the COSAC members. And then maintains agriculture scored the highest. And that was followed by allows public access, was scored second. And then maintains waterways was the third highest. And maintains wildlife habitat was the fourth. And distinguishing factors, they felt like the property had enough distinguishing factors to give it an average score of 7.17. And so the applicant is here if you have any additional questions, but sorry.
One question I have is the parcel or parcels between Highway 89 and this parcel, who controls that and who owns that? I mean, is that going to end up being built with a big industrial plant that'll block off the scenic vistas of this parcel?
Straight east of this, straight east is more farm ground. It goes all the way up to the Harris Land. Yeah. Do you own some of that too, though?
No, Craig.
Craig has all that.
We own, well, right next to the tracks, we own up to the railroad track.
Okay.
Well, with Pepperidge Farm. Yeah, you'll see it.
Yeah, so this is Lee's right here, right? And so you own this property that was considered to be added onto this, but was withdrawn, right? And then this property is owned by Pepperidge Farms, and they also own this property.
We lease from Pepperidge Farm that 100 acres.
That first one you highlighted where it's now says.
Yeah, it ties into us up to the railroad tracks.
Stephen, I have a question about the COSAC consideration. Is one of the things they consider whether or not there's impending development nearby? For example, the Furman property is already completely surrounded by development, several cities all around it. I thought I heard them talk about before trying to prioritize preserving lands that could potentially end up getting developed soon versus lands that are maybe farther away from development.
Yeah, so that is it's not weighted into the scores other than maybe protect scenic vistas. And they often will discuss it, but it's not directly weighed into the scoring criteria.
Did they discuss that at all on this one?
There was a little, when we went and did the site visit, there was quite a bit of discussion because we talked about how several of the properties around this area are looking at potentially annexing into Richmond and also being further developed. I would estimate that what most of the kind of the core urban area of the valley has seen over the last 20 years, Richmond and Lewiston will probably not be too far behind some of that growth. You're starting to see that in Richmond already with several developments going out there. And so it is likely that in 30 years that a lot of this in this area, likely not all, and there's a lot of here that will remain farmland for a long time, but there will be a lot of development pressure in this area would be my, what I would guess.
Thank you.
Stephen, I have a question. You said that the state Department of Agriculture has designated this as a special piece of land that they want to preserve. What criteria do they have? Because
I don't actually know. I talked to the staff representative, and it's kind of a new, he indicated that it's new, that they are being more proactive about some of this preservation. And so, and the property owners could probably help a little bit more since I've worked with them more directly. But what the representative from the state told me is that they're wanting to help the property owner apply for like NRCS funds, Leroy McAllister funds, help them through those processes and provide some technical support for getting the information needed, and then willing to hold the conservation easement. In the state of Utah, if there's a conservation easement, either a government or a nonprofit has to hold that easement to ensure it's long-term, that it's enforced over the long term. So that way we don't shell out a bunch of money and then 20 years down the road they sell it to a developer and it's developed. And so there's a third party who holds that easement. And so he indicated to me that the state is wanting to hold this easement. There's also a nonprofit who, Utah Land Agricultural Trust, has also communicated with us that if the state for some reason doesn't hold the easement, that they are interested in this property as well.
You know, there are a lot of lands out in this area and everything that if we move on them now, that we can probably, you know, get larger tracts basically as open space for a lot less money than if we just start pocketing in high development areas. I mean, high development areas will just swallow your dollar up just left and right. And, you know, we lose all that potential and that, you know, to be able to do that. And so, anyway, what do you think there? This here, basically, we send it back. We, this is round one, and we send it back to COSAC and let them take care of it. We need our approval to send it back to them, right?
Yep.
We say keep on keeping on.
Yeah. Any, I'll entertain a motion as such, or
I'll move that we that we adopt or accept resolution 2024-20 and send it back to the COSAC committee for the next round.
Second.
moved and seconded that we we pass resolution 2024-20, approving the Harris Farm Round 1 open space application. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay.
Now we just gotta have Zan walk the 0.9 miles of the river.
When we did our site visit, he was up and down on it on a four-wheeler.
That's why I want him to walk it.
I have a question I forgot to ask. It doesn't really have any bearing, but do they have any basic valuation for that property yet?
Not at this point. As far as I know, you don't have any. Oh. Okay. Oh, great.
Okay, let's go to, appreciate your patience, Mr. Cox, being here. Resolution 2024-21, the creation of an Utah Inland Port Authority project area in Hyde Park City, encompassing certain unincorporated areas of Cache County. So you're going to speak?
Well, Sean and I can speak, or Mark, or.
What time is it? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Just.
No, you're
all
good.
All in favor,
you're
say
good.
aye, man. You guys, you made my city council look so easy.
That was a knock on me, not you.
Yeah. I'm just talking to Sean.
I got city council tomorrow, and I'm thinking I got a piece of cake, man.
You probably do. But go ahead.
Hyde Park's been meeting with the Inland Port Authority for some time, along with Sean, and we've had an opportunity to meet with the Economic Executive Group, and we've briefed. Mark's been in that meeting. We briefed them on where we stand. we have been considering, our city council has voted a resolution to entering in discussions with the Inland Port Authority, utilizing, since Hyde Park City, in our annexation agreement, the north end of the airport would fall within that area, although right now it's in an unincorporated county area. The railroad, we have transportation, we have all the great elements for a good corridor for utilizing that for economic incentives. And it's in our light industrial area. So we've been in discussion with them, recognizing that that area is in the county, but the county isn't in that development well. They don't have the water, the sewer, all that infrastructure, whereas we have that pressing up into that area. The agreement that we're looking from the county is as property owners move to annex into the city, that they're wanting to develop, that it is an agreement with the city and the county that they are moving into an area that we're designating as an inland port area. That does not mean that they are committed to have to develop in and be a part of that. It doesn't mean that. It just means that if we, and I say that term, if we designate an area and enter into an agreement with the inland port, there would be certain benefits that they could utilize, tools that would incentivize them. They don't have to utilize those tools, but they would be available to them. And we're just wanting to have that recognized from the county council, that as these businesses want to develop, that you're going to have them be annexed into our city. And we have those agreements on the annexation agreement with ourselves, with North Logan, and even on the west side with Logan and Smithfield of the airport. We have those agreements in place. So go ahead, Mark.
And thank you for sticking around. You know, it was kind of longer than I told you it would be on the agenda,
you make me feel better about my city council.
And just to add, the reason that the proposed resolution that we have in front of us would be our request to the Inland Port Authority to create a project area. Because the properties that would be in the project area are currently in the county, not in the city, we're the body that has to make that request.
Right.
And the
I can't designate
timeline
your property
for-
counties.
Timeline for getting things in place, there isn't enough time for the annexation process to take place and get this also on the calendar for next year for the Inland Port project. So that's the reason why Hyde Park City has passed a resolution. We're basically taking that same resolution, passing it, but our intent as Cache County would be to get the project up and going, but then as the property is annexed into Hyde Park, the county, it would not be a subdivision in the county.
Now, utilizing.
Timeline thing.
Yeah, and we recognize, please don't think that we're throwing our hats all in with Inland Port. These are one of the tools. There's other tools that we're looking at for development, but I do believe that this is a way to utilize the economic advantage that we have if rail is needed, or if the airport, utilize the airport for a full capacity and having that make it profitable, more profitable than it is. Transportation, we're looking at the expansion of the western corridor or the bypass, where on the CMPO board, we've got the funding to do the study for the environmental study of where we would place that road. I think we need to be wise enough to look at that future of what we're going to be doing for our communities. I know in Hyde Park, what we've done in our community, we've revitalized and re-looked at our general plan. We recognize that Logan City has been shouldering the burden of all of the moderate income housing. And I refuse to use that term affordable housing because I don't believe there is affordable housing in Cache Valley. It's moderate income housing. But we have changed our tune. We were the last bastion holdout, I think, in the state.
Yeah.
We went kicking and screaming, but we went. And now along Wolfpack Way, we have a lot of housing, townhomes. We've got some apartments. I may get my house burnt down, but
All the way.
I may have to move in one of those townhomes. But we are working that issue. We have a lot of entitled homes now, townhomes, smaller lots than what we've had. Our standard going forward is going to be the quarter acre. Half acre, we cannot replace infrastructure and be affordable. We cannot do that as a city. You can't do that. So we recognize that, but we recognize for those people, they need a place to work. And we're trying to build everything together. An economy, we can't build the town on people. We have to have that industrial area. And this is how we're trying to leverage all of the resources that we have and get it out within the communities. I think it would benefit all of the neighboring communities, Smithfield, North Logan, Logan City, have places for people to work in an industrial area.
From about Highway 91 east, you're just a bed and breakfast place. But now all of a sudden, you get down there, you've actually got, even in Hyde Park, would have some pretty good.
Come on out, I'll take you to the restaurant.
Some good
How do you like
economic-
Bahama Mamas?
Yeah.
That's about
You
it.
know, there's good economic base coming there and potential.
We have been in discussion with a
But the
lot.
lines haven't been drawn on this, have they?
No, we,
Project area?
For the project area?
we have, we are doing our, tomorrow night, we're discussing our zoning maps, future zoning. And so, but on this project area, no. We have concepts of what we're thinking, but,
We're agreeing to keep it going and to look into it and everything, but until you start seeing maps saying, yes, this is the area, it's hard for us to, we'll be part of the application, things like that.
Yeah.
it would come in with a hard map.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mark.
Conversation, a little bit of the detail Micah and I had earlier, anyway, and Sean and I also. The timeline, in order for this, if we, the county, were to move or advance this resolution, we wouldn't be looking to do that tonight. This is more informative. But it would have to be something we would do on the next council meeting agenda or the one after, but that would cut it really close. But it's got to be before the inland port by October. So that's why we're talking about it tonight. There are opportunities, that the scope of the project area would change, but what we're saying is, in essence, is that we will apply for a project area. It doesn't have to be defined right now, and we're not obligating the county to anything other than we would request the project area.
Several other inland port areas within the state, as they've defined them, and then other businesses have been interested, but we need more space. So they've gone in and done amendments and added to them. So it becomes a living document. And so we certainly would come in with something in the scope and then look to perhaps if this is really extremely successful, we take off on it.
So all the responsibility of the airport then will go now to Hyde Park?
You wish.
I'll make most of it. I tried. It's an opportunity.
One of the boundary lines has been drawn on the project area, right?
I did say that there would be, and I think there's an opportunity to make the airport more economically successful.
Yes.
And I think that would be, I think that's in the best interest of the airport. Do I want to own the airport? Yeah, I've seen the paperwork on that. Yeah, I'm not going to be thrown in that briar patch.
Speaking of the airport, if we talk about airports in the county and landing zones and takeoff and everything else, has that been studied with this?
Absolutely. We use the same GIS you're using, and we've had a few projects that have been looking at it, and we're utilizing that,
So
the
the
little
runway,
the
the
layer
approach
and
and landing and
the
everything.
FAA, and they would have to be speaking with the FAA on anything that impacts any of those zones.
Is there any sensitive lands in that area?
There are some wetlands, and they would have to deal with their mitigations on that. And they might be getting a hold of Casey. I know where to find Casey every Tuesday.
Other questions?
Is the project area going to encompass Velvet Lane? You can tell where I grew up.
It would be the west end. So along the highway, we have the commercial area.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you,
Know where I'm
I know where you're talking about, Velvet Lane. Over on the industrial end of the portion, so if you're using the county address, since Hyde Park, we're special, we have different addresses, but if you use county, about 200 west on the county and westward towards the airport.
I do
Or that's
have a
our
question
800.
About this process, like we're approving something that we don't know the boundaries of. When it comes time to make those actual boundaries, will we have the ability to say, I don't want that part to be included in the project? Or
As I
if
mentioned,
was
we're not
very
voting
general?
tonight. When this is on the agenda to be actionable, there will be a whole slideshow and the map.
Yep.
Same thing we saw
Yep.
at the CEO board meeting.
Absolutely.
That I realize and recognize now that
Yep.
you weren't there for that. So
Actually, I had one.
I should have got that to you.
I had one large parcel owner that's usually the last one, and y'all know, the last one that ever wants to do anything with their property. They're the ones that play the long game, that hold on to property 20, 30, 40 years. And they're a nonprofit organization. But they contacted me and said, gosh, yeah, we're really interested in being part of this. And I'm like, holy cow. No.
They said nonprofit.
Said nonprofit.
So they could be farmers.
Not no profit.
I see what Casey drives.
Non and no, it's pretty close, right?
But they want to be a part of it. So I'm like, wow.
Other questions?
It's good. Open, we're,
We'll,
we've been open
tonight.
book on this.
Okay.
We haven't been screaming it from the rooftops, but it's not secret either.
Act on it tonight.
The reality is, now you know, hey, we got to understand what an inland port is. So if you have questions, there's time for homework.
But like I said, this is not the only tool that we have, and we're looking at all avenues.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Appreciate the info and keep us abreast. There's a lot going to happen in the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
On this whole thing, and we'll have all the details a little bit later.
All right.
Appreciate you coming.
Well, thank
talking
you.
to us.
So it says it's
Sean, appreciate you playing backup. You're good.
Best place for me to play, apparently.
You. Okay. Wellsville Founder's Day, scratch me.
I'm not gonna be there either.
Does it say we need to do a resolution?
What's
Does
that?
Resolution 2024-21?
Yeah, we won't act upon that.
Okay.
till- Yeah,
Just, okay, cool.
yeah, we're gonna it's, the details will come
Cool.
later. Anyone else, yes or no? Nolan, now you're scratched too?
You guys are both not going?
Yeah,
I be at a business meeting.
Well, then, I don't know that I want to go by myself.
I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to.
Oh, wow.
sorry. I've
Were
got,
you gonna go, Micah?
I was gonna drive the truck for it,
But I don't think it makes sense if it's just you and me.
I could,
Wellsville would like you.
I could go. I've always wanted to see the Civil War stuff.
it's not Civil War.
Depends on how far back.
I know,
it is.
but-
I don't know what
It's
you
sham
want to call
battle.
that.
The beginning of the parade's where all the action
It's toned down a lot, believe me.
Is it similar to the mood tonight?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, Mark, Sandy.
Yeah. There will be guns.
There will be. They're out for blood.
Okay,
assuming we'll be back. Okay.
I can't.
got that then? Okay, the UAC convention, glad to see all council members are going to that.
Micah, I will only need a hotel for the one night,
Oh, right, okay.
Wednesday. I will go down in the morning Wednesday and I will come home Thursday. Thanks.
Okay, I think most of us are in that same boat.
Yeah, that'd be the same for me, Micah.
1 or 2 nights, though. You start,
They have the
Starts
the
early that next
banquet
morning.
Thursday night, and it goes late, but I'm just gonna come home.
that's what I'm doing.
We did something special.
Yeah, I won't be coming until later on the 11th.
Yeah, you told me the days you were available. I got you.
Okay.
Nolan, you're.
I'm doing the same thing as, yeah.
I have,
Oh, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it 2 nights or 1 night?
Yeah, so
I was looking at the schedule,
I
and
booked everyone for 3 nights, just as a
So I-
default, but we can always take them off.
yeah, so it starts on Wednesday morning at 9, and then it gets over Thursday, but it has a banquet that starts at 8. I'm not going to the banquet on Thursday. I will be going home, so I'm just gonna spend Wednesday night.
But why was I booked on Tuesday then? So
Well, because
So you could be there
it starts
at
early
9.
morning,
So you
Wednesday,
didn't have to drive.
and I'm
I'll
like,
have
I'd
to
much
look.
rather drive in the morning on
The
Wednesday.
room rate was for 3 nights, so I just booked it for 3 nights, but I can always cancel them.
okay, let me check.
I have to be there Tuesday at 1, so I'll keep and I can't drive home in the dark, so.
You'll
So
keep all
I'm
3.
handicapped, I'll need the 3 nights. Sorry.
I don't need to.
I'll let you know on my plans there, so. Okay,
I'll give the finals on me too.
county council, the summer party, did we just,
Did we
I see
change
a
it to the
text?
5th?
The third.
Third.
The 3rd? I thought it was the 5th.
Yeah, it was the 5th.
Barbara just texted saying it's the 3rd, but that's Labor Day, isn't it?
I thought it was.
Labor Day's the
Third is
2nd.
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
It was the second day of the parade.
Well,
It says
I
the
think she
5th, now
got,
it's the
did I see something about she got with Gordy, and Gordy is going to
Needs a
have the shrimp
count
boil?
tonight, yeah.
But he needs to count tonight.
Okay.
For the 3rd is what her text.
Change
They're
it
holding it on the
again.
3rd, and we'll have the shrimp boil at Gordy's Ills. Is that what I just saw?
What she said at 5:33.
Is this, I know this only applies to 2 of us. Is this just our spouses, or is this family?
It'd be just spouses,
Okay.
yeah.
Why
This
is that
would
only
be,
apply
out
to
there,
2
it'd be
of
just
you?
with spouses.
What do you mean?
Well, like, I have kids at home.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like, we all have spouses.
No, I have kids at home, I
But we
mean.
don't have just spouses.
There's always kids in my house.
I have kids at home sometimes, so.
It's,
Yeah.
it is on the 3rd then, it's changed from the 5th to the 3rd?
Okay, good.
So we don't need to bring anything?
Yes, there will be, I'm sure, usually Barbara will send out some things like some salads or, things like that, but the shrimp boil,
And
it's
it'll be
always
at
good out
Gordy's
there.
house.
It's out
We don't
at
have a
Gordy's
time?
place. 5:30, did she say?
Says 5:30.
5:30.
Oh, no, sorry, it doesn't say on this one, excuse me. She sent it at 5:30.
Oh, it's sent it at 5:30. Well, it'll be forthcoming. It says 6 on here, so I imagine it'll be pretty close to that anyway.
So is someone gonna text her account?
Everyone should text her who's going, how many.
When did we get a new text? I didn't see it.
It was like during the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go look
Yep.
now, it's right there.
One Utah Summit. I'm gonna be heading down to that, October 7th, 8th, and 9th. Anyone else?
I will be there because that's the graduation of the URLA. And so they are paying for my hotel room
Good.
and my ticket to the, but that means we miss, council meeting. There's a council meeting on the 8th.
Yeah.
Right? I was concerned.
Wasn't there a
about
council meeting on September 11th? What are we doing on that one? Pushing it?
Yeah,
September 10th.
We're talking about October. This is October.
I don't,
We do 17th.
Yeah, we pushed that one.
Do we have to do one on the 24th too? Can't we just do one on the 17th?
Just have one that month, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's.
We'll vote twice, say we did it for the next.
yeah, we do have a meeting during that one.
There is a county council meeting that night,
I know.
so we'll work through that. USU Homecoming Parade, October 12th.
I plan to be there.
All the time.
As do I.
It always rains, but I'll be there.
Put me down too.
Month and a half away. I don't know. TBD.
Maybe we can have a shirt by then.
Let's wear gunny sacks.
What
How-
time's the parade start?
Anyone else for the USU Homecoming? I believe that's day is also, they have the big ag barbecue. Isn't that the 12th too?
They usually do it, I think, before the football game, but I think the football game's on Friday night
Oh, is it?
this year.
Yeah.
Before the homecoming parade?
Before the parade.
Yeah, the football game's Friday
Well,
night.
that's a downer,
I know, it's a little.
especially if they lose.
They lose.
Well, we got 3 people in the homecoming parade because they lost. Oh, doggone it. Okay, that's interesting. How about USAC Fall Conference?
I'll be there.
I will be there.
Is Ruby's,
Ruby's in
is
again.
Ruby's in at Bryce Canyon?
Yeah.
Yep.
You guys have your lives more planned than I do. I'm TBD.
Same with me.
I'll be there, Mike. So I got Carl, Dave, and Mark.
Probably me, but have to see.
Put me down, Micah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go with council member reports. So start down there with Mark.
Well, Sean's presentation on the rural community development grant covered our CEO board meeting last week. So I think that I don't have anything additional. Thanks for having that discussion about the inland port.
Nolan.
I do have something, but I can't bring it up in public, so I'll talk later.
Okay. Catherine?
Nothing, I think, no, we're good.
Carl?
Nope, I've said enough.
Piqued my curiosity.
Sandy?
Did the River Heights Parade on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
That was fun.
Was fun.
Good.
Carl walked the whole time. I was impressed.
I even ran some of them.
I
know.
did.
Downhill.
Because
Micah
it
drives too
traces back the exact same, like, part of it is exact same
Yeah,
route.
it goes up one way and then
So
comes back
Sandy
the
and
same
I-
way, so it's the
you-
same people.
So
Sat in
Candy
the back-
twice?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Sandy and I sat in the back of the truck for a bit, and Carl was running behind.
Yeah,
It
good.
was fun.
Well, good. I just want to commend everybody for really taking their budget and stuff to heart. It is going to be, it's going to be big this year. Everyone in this county is getting hit really, really hard. And so we need to keep mindful of that. And I know we've had a lot of discussions and there's a lot of wish lists and everything, but just remember who's paying it. You know, we really need to consider them that are paying, our patrons that are paying it, and the complaints we used to complain about having to pay it ourselves. So anyway, we
I'm trying to
appreciate.
remember, Dave. When was the last time we had a tax increase? It was so many years ago.
I think it was 2020. That's what I thought
When they held the rate, I thought he said it was 2019.
Oh, 2019.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I thought it was before that, yeah.
Then,
This is, darn,
yeah.
I was hoping I'd have an unblemished record.
When was the last tax cut?
I don't know.
Every year, every other year.
Are you defining tax cut as
A
like?
cut of the property, cutting the property rate.
Oh, it goes down every year.
Goes down every year.
Rate goes down
Rate
every
goes
year.
down every year.
Every year.
But it's still reflective of the dollars are still,
The dollars are the same. but the rate goes
Revenue
down.
neutral, funny math.
That's
That's a
mill
good way to
levy
put
drops
it.
every year.
Yeah, as the
well,
property
we,
values go up,
we, we need to always keep in mind that what do we do that is statutorily that we have to do versus that we just do to do.
we want to do a lot of things.
Yeah. So anyway, we appreciate everybody. We'll go ahead and adjourn.